Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Welcome one, welcome all to the 7th round of V8SCOPS for 2023. We're here at the magnificent Road Atlanta circuit in virtual Braselton, Georgia, USA. This track has always been a massive highlight every time it's been on the V8SCOPS calendar, and we're expecting nothing less than the best in terms of racing action here tonight in Super Split 2 and the main game as well. To bring it to you all live on YouTube, Facebook, and Kick here on SimSpeed TV is myself, Reese Gardner. I've got Dan Yeaman alongside me and Jay Kennedy handling production behind the scenes. Well, let's get into this, Dan. Road Atlanta, we had plenty of time to go over how wonderful this track is in the support series on Friday night, but it's worth going over it again. Road Atlanta's just gorgeous.
It certainly does the part for many a category, and hopefully tonight the V8 well, just northeast of the city of Atlanta, capital of Georgia itself, as we zoom on in down to the venue and say hello just off to the left there of the screen, the formerly Linear Speedway, but of course our attention is here with Road Atlanta itself. Just over 4 kilometers in length and not quite brushing that 4.1 kilometer length, and corner numbers be an American specialty as always. I amused with a fond heart watching look at the corner numbers and such. But anyways, a great circuit we saw in the older V8s on the platform. They were definitely an exciting track to watch the cars go around, obviously. Heavy at the front end means that maybe a little bit of a challenge to get them rotated through some of the faster turns like turn 1, or making sure you don't run too wide at the final corner, turn 12. But at the same time, you need to make sure you've got your right foot under some careful control. You don't want to get too exuberant, as it were, when trying to put the power down, say, through turn 3 or off of turn 7 or 10A, 10B as well. So a good mix of high speed, low speed, and long straightaway, obviously there, the backstretch, to allow the cars to wind up to a pretty decent rate of knots before they jump on the anchors and slow it back down. And all in all, yeah, a track that certainly has earned its place as being well balanced and a driver's challenge and reward at the same time.
Yeah, very rewarding circuit to drive, and especially in a big Australian touring car, quite a challenge to get around. Particularly, we noticed quite a bit at the exit of turn 5. There's a nice wide curb there to catch drivers out. You know, you can run across it, and you won't get an off track if you do, but if you get it even slightly wrong, then you will go over the bumps, and it'll be a bit of a challenge to keep it out of the wall. That's one thing that you got to consider about this place, the walls. They are quite close. This is an FIA Grade 2 circuit, but it's still a bit wanting in terms of runoff area in places.
Oh yeah, without a doubt, this track, yeah, especially down through the S's, you've not got much runoff and it's all grass, so if something goes wrong there, you're going to have a fun time gathering it back up. And yeah, turn 5 as well, it's sand trap there, sure, but you're carrying plenty of speed down the bottom of the hill, that even though you're going back up a little bit out of a compression, going to be a bit of a hard time getting it pulled up there as well. And speaking of which, that is turn 5 at the bottom of the S's. And yeah, it's a tempting corner. It's a nice big flat curb there, Reese, you can use on the exit, but it is certainly a place where you can be too greedy and be punished as a result if you get it wrong.
Well, hopefully not many will be getting it wrong here in Super Split 2. We got a 25-lap race coming up here for the drivers that pre-qualified 40th to 80th. One compulsory pit stop for a minimum of 2 tyres, and of course no qualifying session in the server. The grid is set by the pre-qualifying order. We will take you through the grid once practice is over and everyone is lining up on the grid. But in terms of this warm-up session that we've got at the moment, Jamie McKnight is on top in the Synergy SimRacing 027 Mustang. 118.9 is the quickest lap so far. This shot also giving us a good sense of the elevation change around this circuit, which means that those drivers in the 118s around here certainly know how to work the weight transfer. That is so important around this place, especially going through those downhill S's. It's pretty much a straight line that you got to take through these things, but those curbs will catch you out. They are very rough.
They certainly are, yeah. Not ones to be trifled with. If you, yeah, it is a very interesting track because yeah, it can be inviting in spots, but the curbs can be deceptive if you hit them wrong. These cars, I would think, shouldn't have too many problems with them, and also where they're going to hit the curbs too should be all right. But all the same, you occasionally see a car just strike the curb wrong and completely destabilize itself, and then sometimes you never see them quite the same again as a result, especially when they don't get a chance to repair the car fully in the pits. At least if they do, it would take a substantially long time. Not long left in practice, all things considered. 7.5 minutes to go on the clock as we jump on board with Ben Christensen, driver of the number 9 ANZ Motorsports Ford Mustang, working down this back straightaway into the 10A 10B complex here. Drivers hitting a peak speed, it seems, in practice at the moment of around 275 kilometers an hour for Christensen, that time by at least. In the number 9 machine, so maybe a little bit more in it. As you think, sweep down the hill. There's apparently a turn 11 under the bridge there somewhere. Through turn 12.
Wow.
18.765 actually goes faster again here in the warm-up. So Christensen looking to prove a point with preparing for the race here in this warm-up race. Conditions are pleasant, given that it is just on 8:43 virtual time in the morning. And nice cool air and track temperatures at this current moment.
Yeah, the air temperature at the moment is 18 degrees. The track is only 21 degrees, and of course that is in Celsius. Those are the units that we use down here in the southern part of the Western world, which is a little bit of an interesting way of putting it. Yeah, Ben Christensen, he did take that top spot from Jamie McKnight as I was doing my last monologue, and of course, once again, going faster still. So looks like Christensen being a very good pace setter in this practice session. What about Jay Brazier here in the 057? Brilliant looking livery on that Mustang, 19.6 for him. So obviously keeping it up on a race run potentially for this particular run in the warm-up session as he comes in through turn 3. There's so many bumps and rises around this circuit, and quite a few of the corners are actually blind. It's very difficult to actually tell where the turn-in point is if you're driving this place for the first time. That's not going to be a problem for these guys. They've been putting in an awful lot of practice, including this guy, Jason Fewens, in the Banter Alliance Commodore number 67. Again, plenty of fantastic looking liveries out here on the racetrack at the moment. And Fewens not improving that time. He's actually starting a hot lap. He's running behind Steve Vella in, I believe that's a Phoenix Racing Team Holden Commodore, the 005, and he's coming up very close to him through turns 3 and 4, coming down through the S's, once again demonstrating how rough these curbs are. The gyro camera really gives you a sense of how bumpy this circuit can be in these sections. It really does follow the terrain, this circuit, but at the same time, it has a bit of a technical challenge to it. It's one of those circuits that's really been built as a driver's circuit and a nice technical challenge as well, but it lends itself really nicely to passing, especially if you get a slipstream down this straight here and can send it up the inside into 10A and 10B. It looks like Steve Vella, unfortunately, not having the best of exits from the 7th corner, and we'll actually let him go coming into this chicane, which is a little bit faster than it looks. It's sort of high revs in 2nd gear, and you have to shift into 3rd pretty much as soon as you make your way out of the corner. Very difficult to control the wheel spin.
Yeah, it's a real handful around this place in certain spots. Obviously, the low speed zones, of course, most important, especially when you're talking about the run into even turn 1. No, it's a mid-speed turn here. You've got turn 12 before as well. You've got to get through first. Very easy to overdrive it and then compromise yourself there. As I have a couple more drivers here on the backstretch. Jordan Siberus, Alpha Venturi Racing entry, V8SCOPS there in the background a moment ago. As we're seeing, purple sectors apparently coming through is the word in my ear. So I believe Siberus here, the one in particular, to focus on race. We'll see here if he can jump up to the top. Currently got 8th fastest time in the session. Looking to go P1 maybe across the line. No, yes. No.
Still got into the 118s. That's a good improvement for him, but he would have gotten an off track right at the end there as he crossed the line, running across the grass out of the final corner. That is a big element here. At Road Atlanta, there is grass lining the circuit. No tarmac runoffs in sight around here. So if you run a little bit beyond those curbs, it is a bit of a blow to your pace, and of course you will also get the lap invalidated. If this was a qualifying session, Siberus would not have set a valid time there, but this being practice, they are allowed to put those times on the board. Car 66 of Darren Crosby bringing it into the pit lane, and it's probably handy for drivers to be practicing their pit entries here, because pit entry is quite difficult here. Coming down the hill, you've got to negotiate an S-bend with a concrete wall on the outside, making your way into the pit lane.
Yeah, it is an odd one, a little tricky one too, because of course other stuff there is including things like the fact that if you're aggressive, you can more or less take the racing line and then snap hard right as you come under the bridge there. But if drivers are off pace and don't quite get things right, that could see issues in that sense, because driver who's trying to stay on the racetrack and stay at normal speed maybe has a momentary in the zone moment where they're not really paying attention to what's happening directly in front. We could see some front to rear contact. There's also the risk of, not necessarily for pit entry, but drivers who overcommit trying to get up there under the bridge. We saw it in 2-litre Tourers now. Obviously, it's a front-wheel drive car. It was a different set of circumstances for that one there, Reese. But understeering into that concrete on the left-hand side could also be a risk. And then, the pit entry itself proper. Concrete on your right. If you go too hot, concrete on your left down there as well. Yeah, have definitely seen drivers make mistakes with it before. And, not that I'm guaranteed to avoid it tonight, but certainly could happen in the heat of the moment. Who knows?
Well, a minute remains in the practice session. We're looking at Dave Douglas at the moment. He's down the order, actually, the second last on the timing tower. 1 minute 20.78 is the time that he's trying to improve on here. Does he succeed? He gets into the 119s, and that gives him a huge jump up in positions, up into 30th, which is a darn sight better than second last. His teammate, Riley Curtis, now trying to work his way up further, down in 38th at the moment, but he'll practice the pit entry. There's a demonstration of just how much of a concrete canyon it is, and you got to be on the brakes all the way through that S-bend to slow down in time for the limiter line. Of course, if you're in it too hot, well, the concrete will certainly get you, but there's also a chance that you'll be speeding into the pit lane, and that will get you an automatic stop and hold penalty assigned by iRacing. Just a few seconds left then, and once this session ends, we'll be able to get into this 25-lap race. We will be seeing drivers potentially get fuel, and we'll also be seeing them change all 4 of their tyres. It's 2 minimum, of course, but the way the tyres go off in these cars, you would expect that all 4 get changed. Well, it's time to race. The grid has been set, and David Kirby will be on pole position for this round of Super Split 2 at Road Atlanta. Ben Christensen joins him on the front row. Then we have Sybaris and Blackburn behind. Bilson and Patterson round out the top 6. Chad Lewis is going to start alongside Tim Mulford for 7th and 8th. Aaron Gilbert and Jay Brazier will round out the top 10. Then we got Ben Faulkner and Simon Chadwick 11th and 12th.
13th place on the grid for this one is going to be in the hands of Andrew Ritchie, Richard Mayer, alongside him in the 9:48 for 14th place. Steve Kennedy and Aidan Ford sharing row number 8 with Jason Fewens and Bobby Jovanovic out of 17th and 18th to get this one kicked off. The top half of your field here in Super Split 2 is Simon Vella and Simon Mazzomo sharing that one to get things underway. Jamie McKnight, Stephen Banks on the 11th row, Vincent Skilbeck and Henry King to round out the 12th row on this grid here, Reese.
Synergy Sim Racing's Brady Baldwin starts alongside Zachariah Trey White on the next row. It's Mahoney and Pennefather behind, with Chris Miller and Jai Schultz rounding out the top 30. Dean Powell and Lindsay Hobbs will take up 31st and 32nd. And then we got Stead Miller and Darren Crosby behind them. Steve Vella and Dave Douglas 35th and 36th. Final few positions on the grid: Roy Clark, Riley Curtis, Brendan Murdoch and Bruce Tannock. That is 40 cars taking to the start, and one of them will get the golden ticket, the chance to race in the main game tonight. The winner of Super Split 2 can race in the Split 1 race later on tonight if they so choose, and David Kirby will certainly be looking to protect that from Ben Christensen, who's been looking mighty quick here at Road Atlanta tonight. Just a couple of seconds remaining before we go into the final minute of our gridding time, and drivers continue to work their way onto the grid. Interesting point here at Road Atlanta, because the grid is so large, we actually have the bottom half of the field starting on the downhill run towards that final corner, which could certainly make things a bit interesting, all the more possible to get a really good start from further back in the grid, but you have to negotiate that fast right-hander on your way to actually taking the green flag. So shorter run to turn 1 for the drivers here up at the front of the field, but every chance that we might see an incident in the mid to back of the field as they make their way through that very quick uphill first turn here. Who will get the best standing start? Of course, always standing starts in V8SCOPS. And a little bit of a trick to getting these cars off the line. Have to try and use the handbrake function. Make sure that you've got your clutch bite points sorted. Otherwise, you'll get massive wheel spin and completely bog yourself down off the line. The drivers will have been practicing these. And now we see whether that practice will turn into a good start for any of these guys. Kirby versus Christensen on the front row. The green flag flies and we are away. That is a pretty good start from Jordan Sybaris and Tyler Blackburn behind. Left standing a little bit is Riley Bilson, but he will be protected from the drivers behind as they come into turn 1, and Christensen takes the lead around the outside of turn 1. David Kirby now under massive pressure from Jordan Siberus as they come into turn 3. Everyone looking for a bit of space in the midfield, but it doesn't look like we've seen any drivers go off at turn 1. Chad Lewis starting from the pit lane will actually come out behind everyone, but we have our first casualty at the exit of turn 5. There's Jordan Siberus spinning around, fortunately staying out of the way of the rest of the field.
We've also had Henry King go around at the start of turn 5 in the 429 entry. So that's 2. Oh, in the background of turn 6 there, someone's read Stephen Kennedy, the 55 M1 racing machine, has gone off into the sand trap there. So that's a couple more cars off, and unfortunately, Reese, we did have one victim at turn 1, which was the number 15, Zach Ratte White. Tried to go around the outside of King in the 429, and unfortunately for him, wasn't able to stay on the racetrack given, well, just it was a bit of rubber out there and just wasn't able to get the grip. So he tumbled down a couple of spots in the process, but, well, we got about half a lap and then we started dropping one by one. Get a contact to seeing Richard Mayer almost around at 10B, but he hangs onto it, and now he's getting absolutely swarmed by cars as he gets back up to speed. As a result here, Reese, first lap going to be about done now. And oh man, still trying to get back up to speed, I think, here and make sure the car's okay. He checked up a couple of cars in behind him there as a result.
Well, Ben Christensen leads by 0.7 of a second at the moment, and that's exactly the kind of lead that he would want. But, oh yeah, further problems for Richard Mayer in the 948 entry. He is absolutely dropping like a stone. There he is on the outside of turn 3, inside for turn 4, but Dave Douglas getting a better run there, and Jordan Siberus has managed to get back going, but he is plumb last and a long way off the rest of the field. He'll be hoping for a safety car to get himself back into contention.
Yeah, he's going to... Oh, trouble at turn 6, 7. Jovanovic this time. In them, so I think there was another car involved as well. And, oh, they've had to scatter as a result of that one there. Looks like somehow, apart from the contact that caused the spin, and for Jovanovic's car in particular to go across the inside of the two corners there, we've gotten out okay as the drivers carry on here. Race Control already looked at incidents on lap 1, and Simon Vella in the 393 entry is going to get a drive-through penalty for one of the incidents that occurred on that lap. I heard Stephen Kennedy on the radio a couple of times to make sure his one got through, and I suspect maybe that might have been him. Pit window is now open for Super Split 2, but looks like, at least in the front half of the field, everyone going to carry on here and stay out for the time being, Reese.
Yeah, I'm checking out Simon Vella just to see what the issue was. Jai Schultz, one of the cars to come in at the very start of this race. Jamie McKnight, meanwhile, in that brilliant orange Synergy car, trying to work his way forward here. He started outside the top 20, and he is currently way up the order, up in the 16th spot. So that's a good gain for him. Also some good gains for Oliver Patterson, who started in 6th spot, is now up into 3rd. Oliver Patterson and his Vermilion Motorsports teammate last round at Virginia International Raceway unfortunately messed up the strategy, did not come in under safety car despite being the class of the field. So this is an opportunity for redemption for that Vermilion Motorsports car, as we see McKnight under some massive pressure here from Vincent Skilbeck in the 091. Looks like a pass happened between Benjamin Faulkner and Jason Fewens as well down at turn 10A, and it looks like everyone getting through cleanly for the time being.
Yeah, we've also been told, getting to get a replay in a second here, as we've had drive-through penalty vision. And Jason Fewens the one to make contact with Stephen Kennedy. So Simon Vella black flagged for a separate incident on lap 1. Might have involved Henry King at the start of turn 5. As we go back to live pitches, McKnight and Baldwin all over each other. I've just seen one of the Excalibur cars has gone off at turn 1. And, check up through turn 3. It's the number 124. There it is. That is in the hands of Stead Miller. Unfortunately, and look at that ahead of Stead as he's rejoining the track. Roy Clark ends up off the road in the number 21 machine. Reese, my word, they are elbows out here. This is only lap 4 of 25. I know that's a sprint race for all intents and purposes, but definitely no holds barred, it seems, when little mistakes might be made.
Yeah, very much biff and barge in these cars at the start of a race, but up the front of the field, things have calmed down a little bit. Christensen's gap extending quite a bit to 1.5 seconds. So not much that David Kirby and Oliver Patterson can do to catch up to him at the moment. Is Riley Bilson, meanwhile, trying to chase down Tyler Blackburn and improve his position. Blackburn carrying some damage to the front left of that Gutter Night race on Oz machine. Obviously picked that up somewhere on maybe lap 1 or 2. But Bilson falling under some pressure here from Aaron Gilbert, who is the reigning V8 support category champion. Had a pretty rough run in the support categories on Friday night, so he's looking for a bit of redemption himself. He is under pressure himself from Tim Mulford in the 85, who goes a little bit wide off the exit of turn 5. That's some valuable pace and momentum lost there for Mulford, but he can get it sorted, get it back under control for the exit of turn 7. He's definitely looking aggressive on the brakes, but will that translate into a good run down the straight? For the moment, doesn't look like it.
Yeah. So far, fairly spread out at the front of the field is the word I'm looking for at this stage. The action is, of course, further on back. As we see these guys work their way down the back straight away. And plenty of drivers making moves in this one. We just saw there for a moment, so good to see Jovanovic, 17th place for him at the moment, heading on down into 10A, 10B. You can see he can afford to take a fair bit of inside. Oh, trouble further on back in the field. It's a two-car instead. Steve Vella in the 005, and Riley Curtis have got together on the way down to the chicane there, Reese, and that was a bit of an interesting one watching that live from my own perspective.
I see what you mean.
We'll hopefully get a replay of it here just to sort of quickly talk everyone else through it here. So this is what happened as they worked their way down. Curtis obviously defending from Vella, and then he goes to cross over. Bit of a block. You'd say yes. And then Curtis back and forward trying to keep it out of the wall. Does clip the wall for his troubles though.
Yeah, it looked to me like Vella was opting to go for the right-hand side of the track on the way into the chicane, but the door was shut by Riley Curtis, and I mean, it was pretty well held by the number 18, all things considered. Minimal damage, if any, from that wall as we check out through turn 7 here on board with Dean Powell. He's trying to get into the top 20. That's Justin Pennefather, who's up ahead of him. And they've got Stephen Banks and Chris Miller after just ahead of them as well. It's a big gap to Jovanovic up ahead. Powell looking for something here in the braking zone, but he's going to have to get off the throttle early there. Just give a little bit more space to Pennefather through 10A and 10B. Look for an opportunity somewhere else around the racetrack. There's been a bit of a lull here in drivers taking pit stops. Just as I say that, though, there goes Jamie McKnight taking his compulsory pit stop there nice and early. But, I mean, here in the first half of the race, I'd have to say it's a bit of a weird one. Would you want to pit super early in a race like this? The tires do go off pretty quickly, yes, but you want to try and make them last, potentially pit around the midpoint of the race. The drivers who have pitted so far, they are going to have to baby those tires to the end.
Yeah, the other thing, of course, that you have to worry about is where you're going to come out with tires. Like, I'm just having a look at a track map I can see on my timing screen, and unless you're Ben Christensen, if you're lucky, as the race leader, that you might be able to file out into a gap, but that gap is back in the mid-20s, like the high 20s. If I'm getting my pit deltas roughly right, there's all trouble indeed. 748 machine, Brendan Murdoch behind the wheel of that one there as he comes down the S's. Riley Bilson, though, will go and test the theory into pit lane.
Nearly spun it on the way in as that's the number 17. Oh dear, Stephen Banks. He has had a bit of a rough run so far, and part of a new team, Pacific Esports Racing, that has been formed in the last week or two. Let's have another look at what happened to Brendan Murdoch here. Unfortunately, he lost it all on his own. Little bit deep into turn 3 and had to go straight across the grass. And did he get into the wall? No, he just avoided it.
We've had trouble between Justin Pennefather and Bruce Tannick at the start of lap 8. Meanwhile, here's happens to Banks, so he's around the outside of Mr. Chris Miller, and then, oh dear.
Oh, wow.
That angle was a bit bit hard to say. I think just, well, presuming contact between the two of them has somehow tipped Banks's car around. As in here, Pennefather and Tanek on the way up to turn 2 and 3 get into each other on the way up the hill, and then,
yeah,
massive hip check as Tanek tried to hold the inside. And that has cost both of them a fair bit. Obviously, Pennefather more than Tanek. As we head back to live pitches.
Brazia with the move around Chadwick. That looked spectacular.
Yeah, not even getting a chance to fully process it. Riley Bilson's being absolutely ganged up on down the back straight in the meantime. Just come out of his pit stop, and he's just been... look at that there, the Pacific Esports duo of Stephen Banks and Simon Vella. Both going to get around him there. That's not what Bilson wants. And Bilson was running up in and around the top 5 or so, I think, Reese, before he pitted. And, yeah, come out in P30. So I think he's going to have made the wrong call here. Sure, he's got pace over these drivers for the next little bit with tyres, but also his pace is where he should be. But looks like he's going to struggle. He's struggling a little bit, at least, with consistency and momentum. And he's got a huge amount of traffic that he's going to have to try and cut through to make an undercut even work here.
Yeah, and when you come out in traffic, it's always frustrating because you know how much faster you are than the drivers around you. Not only do you have to back off, there's also potential that you'll burn through that fresh set of tyres before you really get a chance to take advantage of the pace that you've gained from pitting. Either way, we'll turn our attentions further forward here. This is the 947. Trying his best, Tyler Blackburn, to get up into the top 3. He's caught up to Oliver Patterson and David Kirby as Ben Christensen continues to streak away into the distance. Dean Powell, meanwhile, suffering a bit of a technical issue as he tries to work his way past his inverted number counterpart, the 666 of Chris Miller. Zach Rattray White looking to take advantage of this, wasn't quite able to through the final couple of corners. Vincent Skilbeck comes into the lane now, and, well, if you want an update on who's the leader of the cars to have pitted, looks at the moment that it is
Bilson.
Riley Bilson. Jason Fewens did come into the pit lane, but that was a drive-through that he ultimately had issues with. Oh dear, easy does it. A little bit of a mess down at turn 5. The Quality Control Racing Commodore there, managing to hold on to it, but getting swamped as a result. That's the number 15 there.
I was just going to say, yeah, the 666 of Chris Miller also entangled in all of that. There's a result. Pass for third. Meanwhile, Tyler Blackburn and Oliver Pattinson get together at 10A10B.
No. Oh, dear. That's created a big crush.
Gilbert checked out, and they've got a lapped car. Yeah, goodness me. Apologies.
No surprise to see that Patterson has immediately gone to the pits from that.
Yeah, we've got Brendan Murdoch also on the outside of the racetrack here in the 748. He's got to be careful with trying to rejoin now because, yeah, right where drivers want to be. He gets a chance to get back up to speed, but there we go. Yeah. Now brings Aaron Gilbert, Tim Mulford, and Jay Brazier into the picture. Andrew Ritchie too, not too far behind. Plus, of course, Simon Chadwick, we call it even the top 10 pretty much. Back to Ben Faulkner now, all lining up here behind this third place position that Blackburn currently holds. But it's also, well, given David Kirby in second a bit of a free pass. As I say that off screen, he locks up the brake into turn 7 and runs a little wide. So maybe David's listening in, or once again, the prophetic powers of commentary. As we're going to have a look at the replay here between Blackburn and Patterson. So up the inside nicely, Reese, but then Patterson could have brakes, yes, but he's there. And if Blackburn turns across his nose in the middle of a left-right chicane,
I feel like he was entitled to some room there. Was well alongside at the time the contact was made. Either way, we've got a flurry of cars coming into the pits at the moment. Looks like Andrew Ritchie and Simon Chadwick coming in their two cars. And we'll see where Riley Bilson stacks up in all of this. He is still the leader of the cars to have pitted. And seems to me that he's found himself a tiny bit of a gap at the moment, potentially. We're not quite sure how things are going to stack up, though, because, I mean, look, Ben Christensen is still running some pretty good times. He's setting times in the low 1-minute 20s, and it seems like there's people who have been able to run just a tiny bit faster than him, but of course they are way back in the pack. I still think Christensen is the best placed here.
Yeah, he is. I'm looking at, well, where Bilson has come out relative to cars around him. I think put Bilson in for a chance to have third after the pit cycle completes itself here. But beyond that, things like how his tyres last and such, on his current pace, he's only a tenth or two faster than second and third place, whereas Ben Christensen on a 19.8 is the fastest car on track, and we'll see here in a moment as drivers tick across the line, although Aaron Gillett will come to the lane to get his service complete. Everyone else is in the 1-minute 20s. So, yeah, Christensen comfortably ahead despite being on all the tyres. Although, clean lap coming in here for Bilson too, which hopefully should be a fair comparison. We'll see what he can do. Meanwhile, fighting further on down the pack, Reese, Simon Chadwick up the inside of Roy Clark there. He's back though now in 21st place as they're working their way in through the pits. Clark and Kennedy though will come to the lane for their CPS.
They will indeed. Riley Bilson getting ahead of Aaron Gilbert there as Gilbert's just emerged from the pit lane alongside the 026 of Oliver Patterson, who has already taken his stop, and Gilbert all over the curb at turn 3. That opens the door for Andrew Ritchie, and more contact made on the way into the S's. This is a bit messy here for Gilbert, and it's not what he wanted here. If he just had a little bit more momentum coming out of pit lane, he would have been ahead of this pack. But now he's going to have to try and fight his way past Ritchie and Patterson, both of whom have already come in for a stop. These guys will be racing to the end. We've also got to consider that Patterson came into the pits immediately after that crush at the exit of 10B. Another driver coming into the pits from the front of the field. In fact, make that 3 drivers. It's Blackburn, Brazier, and Faulkner from 5th, 6th, and 7th. We'll see how they stack up in the midst of all of this. David Kirby, meanwhile, in P2, had a huge lockup at the end of the back stretch. We'll see how it happened here, coming into 10A and 10B. Just a little bit too late on the brakes and overshooting the corner. Oh, amazing that he actually managed to pull it up and get through the corners in the regular fashion, though. We saw on a couple of occasions on Friday night, Dan, that there were a few drivers who just went way too deep and went straight across the grass.
Yeah, that was about as late as you could possibly hope for. White line checking out. Well, here come all the drivers out of the pit lane here. So it's, Blackburn to 9th, Brazier to 10th. Both of them jumping Oliver Pattinson, who's now 11th, and Ritchie for so long. Where was the third car in all of that one? We had Blackburn, Brazier, and I'm just trying to remember. It was Dean Powell, I'm being told, was the third car that came in on that lap. Powell has standed back up in 21st, so well off those two guys there. A car off just at Jason Fewens. Yeah, Jason Fewens, turn 6, is out in the gravel. The 67 Banter Alliance machine now looking for a spot to rejoin.
Well, Christensen just coming into the pit lane, and this is significant because Riley Bilson actually having a really good turn of pace. I mean, we thought that it might have been all but over for Riley Bilson here, but Christensen stopped at the end of pit lane. If Bilson can keep this up, Christensen's just gotten out of the pit lane here now. Yeah. It's still going to be close though. Bilson coming in at full chat into the first turn. So the gap between them now looks to be 4.3 seconds. Let's see if there's still any tyre advantage for Bilson as we check out Simon Chadwick here up the inside of turn 6. And oh dear, that Banter Alliance Commodore of Jason Fewens is going to be very unhappy with that.
I suspect so indeed. Yeah, that's an aggressive attack, aggressive defense too, mind you, has to be said, by Fewens. But the contact has seen him well off the road as a result. Kirby will carry on here at the front of the field meanwhile as we're coming to 10 laps to go here in Super Split 2 for their 7th race of the year. Tim Alford's been promoted up to 2nd, but of course yet to pit as well. We have ourselves what looks to be just 5 cars. Yeah, 5 cars yet to pit. 4 of them are in the top 5. The exception is Jordan Sybaris down in 15th place. Christensen, your effective race leader, as Joe Mahoney will knock, and Richie Man behind will knock 2 off that tally. So the road is now clear for Bilson to go after Christensen, but all the same, the gap is still sitting around 5 seconds. So I get the feeling that things are going to be status quo there, at least. Bilson would have to come up with something pretty special to be on the undercut by the tune of 7 laps and still have more pace over the driver who's been able to check out at the front so far in the opening stage.
Yeah, well, Christensen's tyres are now in their prime stage at the moment, so he can take full advantage. This battle for 6th, meanwhile, going off. Brazier, Patterson, Ritchie, Gilbert, and Aiden Ford. They are all battling in this pack here. It looks like a potential problem for the Banter Alliance. 9-2-7 there. Andrew Ritchie having to make room for Aaron Gilbert into turn 6. Can the pass be made for 8th spot is the question. Ritchie's going to lunge it into the corner, try and maintain the outside line, but Gilbert straightens it up and gets a fantastic exit. Now Aiden Ford is looking for a move coming down the back straight here.
Yeah, I think he might have this one done, though. You're going to have to go the long way around as the top 2 will come to the pits, so that will sort out things at the front of the field. Ford still there, but Ritchie got a nose ahead into 10A. Is in deep, is Ritchie. In fact, they're both drivers almost up to the white line on the right side of the road, nearly causing them to push the limits there, but means that Ritchie will hold on to his place for the time being, at least, as they work their way around the turn 12 sweep up to complete another lap here. Start their 17th in this race. And no surprises that Kirby has come out in 3rd, but he's actually on the tail of Riley Bilson here, Reese. So this could be an interesting one to watch. Bilson's undercut has now actually worked to some extent. Didn't think it would work as well as that, I must say. Kirby's pit stop, yeah, everything about it checks out, transit and station time. So, yeah, just a case of, despite the traffic, Bilson able to get enough clean air to really make hay while the sun shined. I think Kirby having a couple of mistakes did hurt him, though, a fair bit too. Though now in the tow, here comes Kirby. Oh, he's been given the inside for 10A as well.
Okay, well, looks to me like the fresh tyres on Kirby's car will work very well for him here. Bilson doesn't fight it coming into 10A. Of course, what he will do now is try and make himself a thorn in David Kirby's side to try and nab 2nd place here. The lead is pretty much gone by this point. Ben Christensen is 5 seconds ahead of these two. So really, it is a race for 2nd at the moment between Kirby and Bilson. They will likely not get the chance to race in the main game tonight unless there's either a mistake for Christensen or the safety car comes out for some reason. With still about 8 laps to go here, there's every chance that some kind of incident will happen. But I got to say, despite the incidents that we've seen, the race has been relatively clean. There haven't been any super heavy accidents requiring a driver to request a tow yet.
Yeah, we've only had some door banging, which isn't too out of the ordinary so far in this one. Speaking of incidents, I do have one that came through from race control a little while ago. The 1-2-3 of Bruce Tannick had picked up a drive-through penalty for contact back on lap number 8 in this race. That there would have been the incident, well, was the contact with Justin Pennefather at turns 2 and 3, which we looked at on replay back then when it happened. So that penalty, well, has to have now been served because that came out some time ago. Tannick, as a result, currently down, unfortunately, in 36th position. And car looking a little rough down the S's as I was checked in on him on my end, at least here, Bruce.
Well, we keep an eye on this ongoing battle for 7th spot. Andrew Ritchie trying to keep Aiden Ford behind him still. But the 2 cars ahead of him are the ones that I'm interested in. Oliver Patterson at the lead of this pack, getting chased down by Aaron Gilbert, who has 2 laps fresher tyres. So Let's see how this fight works out. Patterson, a little bit narrow coming into the S's. The run will be hurt there. How does the exit of turn 5 go for these guys? Gilbert a little bit more aggressive over the inside curb. That gives him a little more pace as well. Can afford to take a bit more out of these tyres as it's defensive from Andrew Ritchie behind. He is still able to keep Aiden Ford behind him, but not for long. Up the inside goes Aiden Ford at turn 7, and they are side by side on the exit. Unfortunately, it looks like Ford wasn't quite able to get the run he needed there. And this has brought Simon Chadwick and Jamie McKnight right into it. A 4-car fight on the way into 10A and 10B. This is sometimes a recipe for disaster. Will they be able to make it out here? McKnight goes for the move on Chadwick and runs a little deep, but he does gain the position. It's the over-under attempt from Simon Chadwick. A little bit too much oversteer on the exit. No traction. Is not able to fight for the position. Or is he? Side by side coming into the final corner. That is fantastic. Those two Mustangs fighting tooth and nail for this position. Chadwick finally getting the move done.
Yeah, there we go.
Oh, and that's big from race control. Oliver Patterson getting a 5-second time penalty post-race for the contact with Tyler Blackburn earlier. And Dean Powell with some issues coming onto the front stretch. That could be dangerous. He has gained a lot of damage there in that 999.
Engine shut off completely for Powell for a moment whilst I was watching him, and very lucky that car didn't completely blow, because if that had happened, well, we would have been in for a late race safety car. So have a quick look here and see Powell, I think, unfortunately, always out in the grass, and just then dragged off the track. And I'm surprised the engine didn't pop instantly, really, because that was a good 200k an hour before contact. At least normal speeds would have been that case. As we've gone back to light pitches, and there's been trouble at turn 5. Steve Vella's been tagged and now backwards in the wall. As trouble for Riley Bilson, because Tim Mulford is now ahead of him here, Reese, as we go back to another one of our reboots. There we go.
Yeah, that's big there for Bilson. Unfortunately, the old tyres not working out for him, and so his fight for the podium is now over. Tyler Blackburn has made his way into 3rd place. Tim Mulford into 4th. Bilson back to his starting position of 5th. All of that hard work he did trying to get that undercut and fight his way through the field has come to very little, if anything at all. But he could still pass Tim Mulford if he nails this move. Bilson's tyres are 9 laps older than Mulford's. But we'll see what kind of pace he still has in that 995.
Well, it looks like the answer is so long as he doesn't... Yeah, so if we just go back to another reboot. This is what I saw on my screens. The 005 of Steve Ella and Stephen Banks. And for Banks, once and twice into the rear of the Phoenix Racing Team entry. And that is going to be a hefty whack. Now, for post-race penalties, it's worth noting here is Bilson there, but not quite. At the current rate of things, and that was Tyler Blackburn who picked that time penalty. No, sorry, it was Oliver
Patterson,
Yeah, Patterson getting penalised for the contact with Blackburn.
It'll put him behind McKnight, that penalty.
It will indeed. 10.9, so anyone inside 15, so as you did indeed say. Jamie McKnight there, 15.6 back to the last car inside, so that's harsh, from 7th back down to effectively 12th on the road there for Patterson, at least in terms of the penalty cost. But that is how it is sometimes, as we watch Henry King up by Richard Mayer there just then. Yes, pass made at the end of the lap there for the 429, although not so great through turn 1. Mayer much better on the run up the hill, but no way past there. This time by at least, and then almost a little deep, but still hangs onto it in that Frog Leap Juice racing car, which has picked up a couple of new sponsors of recent. Reese, both Racecraft Simulations and simracing.com aboard the Frog Leap Juice cars going forward.
Yeah, very nice to see for that team. Not so nice to see for Ben Christensen from his perspective. The gap has come down by a fair margin. 2 2.1 seconds, 2.2 seconds, where previously it was about 5 seconds. I don't know if there's been an issue for Christensen somewhere along the line, but that gap was around 5 seconds when we last looked at it. Have a look at the last lap there for Christensen. 1 minute 20.4 versus a 1:19.8 for Kirby. Christensen seems to be bleeding time here for some reason.
He is. Ever since lap 16. Just double checking my numbers here real quick. Yeah, Kirby in the pits later hasn't gone higher than a 1:19.9. First lap out of the pits was a 1:19.3 for Kirby.
It's interesting, though, because the undercut isn't that big for David Kirby. It's only 2 laps.
It makes me think that maybe Christensen is actually just pacing himself here. He's only going to have 2 laps to go at the line, can afford to be a little gentle on it, and maybe just make sure he doesn't overdrive the car. Here, it's when it's, Stephen Banks got a drive-through penalty for making contact with Steve Vella. But the number 7, that's down at the final corner. Oh, Jordan Sibris. This is here on the racing line, so Sibris needs to be careful as we've got our leaders coming here any second now, but thankfully Sibris now on the club course. Although the rejoin timing's going to be interesting here. You've got to jump on the brakes, Jordan, and he'll let the leader through, but now Kirby's coming. Kirby sees it, but I think that will have hurt Kirby's momentum there just a little bit. Ends up being a dead heat for the lap time there between our top 2 as a result, as we're going to go to a replay. So, no surprises. 2 of them are fighting. How is this going to end up here?
Oh, no. They bang wheels and both of them go sliding into the wall. That's just the cherry on top of a very bad tasting cake for Jordan Sibris. I mean, we saw that he had his issues on lap 1, and he's been trying his best to fight his way through the field since then. A real shame for the car that started this race in 3rd.
Yeah, definitely been a rough race, to say the least. And, yeah, unfortunately, sometimes it just doesn't go your way, and you're going to have to roll with that punch and move on to the next one. As a result, live pitches once again as we're watching Andrew Ritchie, Simon Chadwick going at it, and Jamie McKnight also looking for a piece of the puzzle. Ritchie, bad run through turn 7, but it compromised Chadwick enough that it's not going to allow the 957 past him, but McKnight, the crisscross on Chadwick, coming down the back straightaway here. Meanwhile, error for Christensen.
The lead gap is gone.
All over him.
Yeah, the lead gap is gone. I don't know what's going on here for Ben Christensen, but he's having to go defensive. He's had trouble getting out of the corners. This is a really interesting fight for the finish. Coming on to the final lap of this race. Will David Kirby be able to get it here? Christensen will be defending like an animal here.
Hang on, speed. I think Christensen's short on fuel. Reese, he hit a monumental clutch coast into 10A, 10B. Yeah. This is now Kirby's for the taking. They're presuming that he is all good. This is a shocking miscalculation, it would seem. Yep, out of the throttle he comes. He'll defend the inside, Reese, but the race lead is handed to Kirby on a silver platter. Half a lap to go. Tyler Blackburn is going to get a shot at second place. Served up to him as well. And yeah, Christensen's out.
He's choking. He's out of fuel. Ben Christensen, who was the class of the field through this first stint, making a massive strategic error and losing out on the final lap. He might not even see the finish here. David Kirby will come home with the win here if he can keep it together through 10A and 10B. Blackburn is still trying to catch up to him here. Out of the final acceleration zone they come. And that is going to be your top 2 right at the end of this one. David Kirby wins Split 2 at Road Atlanta. What a tragedy for our pole sitter.
And as you suspected, the rise in the hill on the back straightaway is going to be enough to put paid to any hopes of Ben Christensen to make it home there. My word, that wasn't something I thought we were going to see tonight. That will see him classified in 35th place at least, possibly even as low as 39th as our last couple of drivers. They make their way around the track there. Chad Lewis, we were focusing on there for a second. He winds up in 15th tonight.
Not bad for starting from the pits.
And Mahoney. Oh, hello. Mahoney's just gone up over the dirt to finish the one at race in the 36. Lost a couple of spots in the process, and Stephen Banks apparently has had even more trouble his race, or he's already finished the race, pardon me, so that's no major troubles there for him. He's serving his...
Well, we'll see what happened to Mahoney here. Yeah, just catching the grass there as he crossed the start-finish line. Well, the race is over by that point. Wouldn't have hurt him much, but man, what a finish to this race. Just goes to show, in order to win in V8 SCOPS, you have to get everything right, and that includes your fuel strategy. Ben Christensen stricken on the way up through turn 7. That will be something he's going to be thinking about for a very long time.
Yeah, it's an odd one here with a compulsory pit stop. Should have been good to top off to make sure he made it home, but alas, error has been made, damage is done. David Kirby is scored as your race winner here in Split 2, just under 4 tenths ahead of Tyler Blackburn. So 307 is his chance to come up to the top split in a moment's time. Tim Mulford will round out the podium as a result of all this one here in the number 85 for Phoenix Racing Team. Riley Bilson will still end up in 4th there for 9.5. Simsports J. Brazier make it a top 5 finish there in the 0.57. Oliver Pattinson in P6 ahead of Aaron Gilbert for 7th. 8 and 4 there up to 8th place. And 9th place for Andrew Ritchie there, and 11 spots gained. Not quite the most tonight race, but the highest place finish of those with double-digit gains goes to Jamie Knight there in the 0.27.
Well, Simon Chadwick will come home, gaining 1 position to 11th. Skillbeck up 11 spots to 12th. Brady Baldwin gains 12, as well as Zach Rattray-White. Chad Lewis started from the pit lane and made his way back up to 15th, which is a really good performance, all things considered. Jovanovic, despite the issues he faced, getting bumped off the circuit in the first couple of laps. 16th for him at the end. Mazomo up 3 spots to 17th. Lindsay Hobbs gains the most spots here, up into 18th place after starting 32nd. Jay Schultz will come home in 19th, and Henry King, another car that had contact in the opening laps, rounds out the top 20 for his troubles.
And then into the back half of the field. 21st goes to Richard Mayer in that 948 Frog Leap machine. Justin Pennefather recovers to 22nd there in the end of it all. Darren Crosby 23rd for M1 Racing in the second of those cars. Joe Mahoney, that we saw there with the tank slapper across the line, will still bring it home in 24th ahead of Dave Douglas in 25th. Dean Power, despite that heavy hit, stays on the lead lap and inside of a minute off the leaders. So the Blackhawk Motorsport Mustang getting away with a damage that seemed a lot worse perhaps than it might have been, especially given, even though it happened late, still plenty of time to fall laps down. Nevertheless, 26th for him, 27th to Stead Miller in the Excalibur Esports 124, the second of the M1 Racing cars. Stephen Kennedy there, unfortunately for him, rough night out, bit of contact there with Simon Chadwick early on, puts him in a rough spot tonight. Jason Fewens 29th, and Ben Faulkner next of the JTIT Race on Oz cars, going to round out our top 30, and still on the lead up with only a couple more there who made it on that lead lap as well.
Yeah, Roy Clark, Simon Vella, Bruce Tannock, Riley Curtis, the last cars to cross the line on the lead lap. Ben Christensen, who I'll correct myself from earlier, not our pole sitter. He did start in second, but led the majority of this race. Unfortunately, that strategy blunder putting him down to 35th. Sybaris also a lap down after his late contact. Chris Miller, Steve Vella, and Stephen Banks will come home. Unfortunately, Brendan Murdoch retiring from the race in that 748. A real shame for him. But that's going to end things for our Super Split 2 coverage, and looks like Ben Christensen is in the interview waiting room, so we'll bring him in for a little bit of a chat about his race. It's really unfortunate to see that there was that happened there for you, Ben. Just going to show that it's all about getting your numbers right.
Yeah. Not much good to say about that one. We did the numbers pre-race, had heaps of fuel, which sounds ridiculous now that I'm stopped on the side of the road. At the end, we just worked it out. I used less than 100 mils a lap too much.
Wow,
There you
it
go.
all comes down to a tenth of a litre per lap. I mean, it shows you how narrow the margins are when you're racing these cars as well.
Yeah, well, didn't even realise there was an issue until probably about 2 or 3 laps after the pit stop. We'd done all the numbers, everything was happy, and I just noticed a flashing light and went, no, that can't be right. And then about another 2 laps of doing numbers and realised we're in serious trouble. So, yeah, did what I could. Unfortunately, there's not much left to say other than P35.
Yeah, well, regardless, you still have some good things to take away from this round, Ben. You led for the majority of the running, and you looked like the pace was absolutely sorted. So you can at least take that forward to future rounds.
Yeah, the pace is definitely there. Brett has delivered yet again. We've really got on top of the setups lately. We're pretty happy with everything. Everything's doing what we want it to do, which is the first time in a while. So, yeah, can't thank Brett and Henry enough. Hinsey jumped in there as well, trying to help me with the fuel, get it over the line. We did everything we could. But yeah, it just wasn't enough in the end. So I guess I'll tell the guys in split 1 to maybe add a little bit more.
Yeah, probably a smart thing to do there, Ben. Well, the floor is yours. Despite the lack of result tonight, you still have some good things to take away from this round. So who do you have to thank?
I can't thank, again, Henry and Brett enough. They do a heap for the team. There's a lot they do behind the scenes. Of course, Wilson's Industrial, our main sponsor, and Jinx Shifters as well. Been running one of them for ages now, and I can't fault it. So, and of course, everyone in the team, even the guys driving, were helping out through that race, attempting to get me over the line. But yeah.
All right, well, thanks very much for joining us, Ben Christensen. And we're not going to get an opportunity to speak to our race winner, David Kirby. Maybe we'll be able to have a chat to him at some point later tonight. Regardless, we're going to step aside very briefly here on SimSpeed TV as the servers are now going up for the main game here. V8SCOPS 2023 at Road Atlanta. The 7th round is going to go off. Stay with us here on SimSpeed TV.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
You're watching SimSpeed TV on YouTube, Facebook, and Kick. This is the 7th round of V8SCOPS for 2023. We are at Road Atlanta, and we had a very exciting Split 2 race just gone past. Make sure that you catch it on the replay when we finished our broadcast for tonight. It's time, of course, for the main game. Reese Gardner and Dan Yeaman with you in the comms box, and Jay Kennedy handling production behind the scenes, bringing you these live pictures. Well, Dan, it's going to be all about fuel strategy if you're talking about Split 2, but we've got a bit of an interesting format coming up here for this Split 1 race coming up here.
Yeah, a little bit longer than the Split 2 race, but actually more or less two more of the same as we bring that format up for you now on the screen. 30 lap races apiece, 2 of them. There will be qualifying though, of course, to sort out the exact grid order for race number 1. It's a progressive format, no inverts of any kind here in V8SCOPS, so we will see race 2 dictated by the order of race 1 and a compulsory pit stop in both races, and so that just means that the pit window will be slightly longer, as of course the pits won't open till the end of lap 2 for that compulsory service, but they'll now get up until the end of 28 laps, or end of lap 28, to sort things out there. As we take a look once again at the track map here, Reese, and have another look and see what we can from the marvel here that is Road Atlanta.
Yeah, so in the middle of the American South, Road Atlanta was built in the late 60s, opened really for racing properly in 1970, and there's only been a couple of changes to the layout in that time. 10A and 10B, the only real change to where the track goes. There didn't used to be a chicane down there at the end of the lap. And of course, hump out of turn 7 coming up to turn 8 was flattened a little bit in the late 90s and early 2000s. Only 12 real turns here. Of course, those turn numbers decided by marshal posts, as is the case for a lot of American circuits. If you're talking about actual bends in the road, Road Atlanta has a few more turns than that, but every single one of them is a challenge. Every single one of them is going to define your ultimate pace around here.
It is, yeah. We've seen these cars are can be a bit of a handful in quite a few places. Of course, with both high-speed corners, heavy braking zones, but also long loaded turns as well that you're going to have to make sure you get through as well. And now that we're in Split 1, things are a little bit less ideal, shall we say. It's now midday virtual time, instead of the lovely early mornings that we had for Split 2, and therefore it's a lot warmer as a result. But before we talk about all of those things, let's have a look here at how the championship is going 6 rounds into this year, Reese. And thanks to the fact that Adam Briggs didn't race last week, and mixed bag for both drivers such as Rehan Leonage, new championship leader Robbie Gibbs has made his way to the top of the pecking order, but, well, 1 point. It's about as small of a margin as we can get here.
Yeah, indeed. That is super close, and any difference in results is going to massively change that margin. Andrew Gilliam currently in 3rd spot in the standings, and he is in the server for this round, so we'll see what he can do to overcome Leonage and Gibbs. Excellent performance from the Pursuit Sim Racing teammate of Andrew Gilliam, Michael Taliancic, there in 4th spot. We also see that Dylan Pereira is having a very nice run too, teammate to Rehan Leonage, and just 20 points ahead of Synergy Sim Racing's Brenton Hobson. So bit of a different looking top 10 to what we've seen over the years in V8SCOPS, but still very high quality field racing in this series, and plenty of changes will be made to those point standings by the time we get out of this round, I'm sure.
Yeah, 100%. And also I think it is important to note, despite the fact that we are seeing new names towards the top of the charts, we are still seeing many of the same teams. Evolution Racing Team, Pursuit Sim Racing, Synergy Sim Racing, just to name the 3 big ones, shall we say, that are dominating the drivers' standings at this point. But at the same time, the 2 Phoenix boys of Rayhan and Dylan, Thomas Freeman as the sole Fishy Motorsports representative, up the pointy end apparently on points, which is, to me, feels kind of odd, Reese, in the sense that it hasn't felt like we've seen a standout performance from Freeman yet this season, but just about there or thereabouts, round in, round out, and it's paying off nicely for him in that sense. As we'll head to live footage from the practice session now, and still got about 10 minutes until qualifying gets underway here, Reese, as we're focusing on James Scott. You can see already there's a bit of spread, obviously, at this point. Drivers probably a mix of race and qualifying setups, of course, affecting that. So I'd say for someone like James Scott, who's apparently currently 7 and a bit tenths off of Andrew Gilliam, probably a difference in practice approach here at this point in the session.
Yeah, indeed. James Scott has had a really good run, as have the majority of the Synergy Sim Racing team in the last couple of years. So Scott, formerly of Altus Esports, joining Synergy last year, will certainly be looking to make his way up the order in this session. You see the track temperatures up the top of your screen there. It's quite a bit warmer than it was in Split 2. The track temperature now hovering around 40 degrees Celsius. There's still plenty of clouds over the circuit though, so not as much UV hitting the circuit and really heating it up. We'll see how it goes as we go on through the afternoon. It's just past 12:10 p.m. in sim time, so still got a little bit of potential here for the track to heat up slightly, especially if there's going to be cars pounding around it for the next hour and a bit. But it won't be as much of an issue in qualifying, because once again we have 2 groups going out in the qualifying session. It's a full-on 35-minute session, but the first 15 minutes will be the drivers who pre-qualified 21st to 40th, plus the Split 2 winner if they decide to enter this session. Then there'll be a 5-minute break, and then the final 15 minutes are dedicated to the drivers from 1st to 20th in pre-qualifying. And I think around a track like Road Atlanta, I mean, it is of reasonable length, but the lap times are rather short, and if the track is overcrowded at any point in a session, it's going to be super difficult to actually get a gap, because the turns come thick and fast here.
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons, obviously, to run split qualifying at a track like this with fairly low lap times in this 119 bracket currently to 120 or so. As whilst I've had my head turned, James Scott showing that he was definitely testing or running a different strategy practice program, there, because he's now jumped up to within a tenth of Andrew Gilliam. But yeah, even with 20 cars out on track all trying to find some qualifying space, it's going to be very busy indeed. So it will be interesting to see how drivers choose to go about it. 15 minutes is a fair bit of time, and they can do as many laps as they want within that time as well. So there isn't a restriction on that, which means that I think it's going to be an interesting one indeed. As nice little pit entry practice there for Adam Blocker, gets the Americans down under number 74 Commodore, pulled up nice and tidily on pit entry there, and that's going to be important too. Not so much in qualifying per se, although you're going to want to make sure you leave nothing on the table in qualifying, so that you're getting as many seconds on the racetrack at speed as possible here, Reese.
Yeah, someone looking for a bit more speed at the moment is this guy, James Chastaneuf, in the 427. He has been a Super Split 2 winner in the past, and was always a factor at the front of that field in the last year or two. Now he is making semi-regular appearances in Split 1 and getting his pit entry practice down as well. Remember, the drivers are going to have to make 2 mandatory pit stops tonight across those 2 races. And Dan Hall for Evolution Racing Team also in here as well in car 462. It'll be interesting to see what he can do from that 30th spot, and seeing the way they make their way around this circuit as drivers slow down to let them go. Basically, it gives me the impression, as always, it's going to be really important to come out in a good gap when it comes time for the qualifying session. We usually see everyone go out in a single group at the start of qualifying, which means there's often a bit of jostling and a bit of difficulty in trying to eke out a little gap in front and behind. Because if you're too close to a car in the qualifying session, that is your lap ruined. And it's complicated further by the no escape rule. You can't just pull off the track and press escape in this series. You have to make your way back to your pit box under your own power before you do that.
Yeah, it does obviously add to, I guess, for us broadcasting and for you guys watching, she adds a visual component that is more authentic, as it were. But yeah, without a doubt, it means that these drivers they've got to be mindful, they have to do a full out lap, flying lap, in lap cycle and program. Which is why I was saying, making sure you know your pit entry is going to be important, because they're really pushing it and getting big old slides right down the bottom when it tightens up into that right-hand turn to line it up with the front start finish straight away. But all in all, it should be a good one indeed, as Brody Kostecki will head to the top of the timing screens whilst we check in here with Ian Ford, currently down at 24th at the moment, but I get the feeling we'll see Ian a little higher up the order once we get into qualifying proper. In the background to two of his teammates in the form of Robbie Gibbs and Dan Hall out on track in the ERT's Mustang, or the Mustang edition, I guess you could say, of the ERT trim. And Gilliam will take the practice time, fastest practice time, right back from Kostecki there, Reese, in the meantime.
Yep. Now we are down to the 1 minute 18.8 bracket in this session. And considering the times that we were seeing from the drivers in Super Split 2 with arguably a quicker track at their disposal, just goes to show how quick the drivers at the top of Split 1 are. If we're seeing those kinds of times from Gilliam, Kostecki, Griffin Gardner and James Scott as well. Having said that, though, Michael Taliancic is doing quite well in this session. The 777 currently in 5th spot. He is about 4/10ths off Andrew Gilliam's fastest time, which is a pretty big gap if you're talking about this series. But regardless, the position number tells the full story. And I think Taliancic has been on a steady run of improvement as of recent.
It would seem to be the case, yeah. Taliancic pairs up with Andrew Gilliam, not for, at least in Scops, for the endurance races. And I think, yeah, it's going to be important for Mike as being also team owner of Pursuit. Just do his best to be punching up the top end so that he's keeping the gap to Andrew nice and close, and make sure that he's feeling like he's punching at a level that he feels happy with. And I think keeping that enduro pairing nice and balanced. But has been doing plenty of V8 racing here and elsewhere on the iRacing service. I think it seems to be doing him a deal of good as a result over the long run, and championship form in particular, I think is showing that positive trend upwards for him.
Yeah, remember, it is a very long season in V8SCOPS. 15 rounds in total across the year, and in between this round and the next, we will pass the halfway point of the season, and it's all about consistency, making sure that you appear at as many rounds as possible, stay out of trouble, get those results on the board, get points, make sure that you finish races. That is the main thing. If you're really quick but you don't end up getting classified points finishes, then your season is effectively wasted. So you got to make sure that you at least try to plug away. If you have a big incident, fine. If the car's too damaged to continue, fine. But if you have the ability to continue, then you arguably must in a series like this. Well, less than 2 minutes left in the practice session, and at the moment, it's looking like Gilliam versus Kostecki for pole position for the first race of the night. And I'm looking forward to that battle for sure. Also got to consider Griffin Gardner for 9.5 Sim Sports. Griffin has had a great turn of pace this season in car 93, and he is on the V8SCOPS winners list. Took his first win a couple of years ago, I believe, at Sebring. So he has got a lot of momentum and continuing his steady improvement like many of the drivers in this field are. Yes,
He is indeed. Yes, just having a look through things in the background and such, just because you notice obviously the number next to, or just having a look at the number next to, pardon me, Brody Kostecki's name, and that'll be because 99 was already taken by Philip Kraus, who's been racing a fair chunk of these races. That's why he's got 696 next to his name, for anyone who might be wondering what's up with that there. But yeah, 2-horse race possibly, but I would say certainly we saw Griffin Gardner able to capitalise at VIR when things got a bit crazy during the race there. At only 3/10 back, I'm sure he's got a little something more to give. As Corey Preston, it's not quite on the racing track there, and then rejoin almost awkwardly timed. I think that was for Blake Delaney in the 08 Fishy Motorsports car, but everyone survives and carries on. The checkered flag, though, will fly here at Road Atlanta as the last couple of cars will get a chance to get across the line, and we get ready to get the first group of qualifying underway here. See if the drivers from the bottom half of pre-qualifying can make their way up the order here, Reese.
Right then, qualifying begins 21st to 41st. Let's see how things go here. Looking for David Kirby in this. Yes, there we go. He is in the session. So our Split 2 winner will be taking part in the Split 1 competition tonight. This will give a good gauge, I think, as to the pace difference between Split 2 and Split 1. See how high up Kirby can get in this session. Well, leading the charge at the moment is the 222 of Jacob O'Reilly, part of the Archers Brothers Esports team. He is followed closely by Scott Gamble, who is in the Soldier On Evolution Racing team car.
Not anymore, isn't?
No, actually, my apologies. Goodness me, I've got the skins not updated here on my end. It's actually quite a big change there for Scott Gamble. Now part of the WKNP Sim Sports team. That is a pretty good grab for WKNP. They're a pretty strong team. Their arguably lead driver, Blake Warboys, an excellent driver, and the Shannon's NTE Series champion for this season. I think a very good addition to that roster.
Yeah, I have to say I was a little surprised to see Scott in the WKNP colours. Once that was actually, I saw that announced as part of a V8 Veterans Championship promotional material. They're getting ready to get their 16th season underway. That will be coming back broadcasted Thursday nights on SimSpeed here with us. I'll be on the production for that one, have Scott Rankin back on commentary for that one. And we also have Brady Baldwin for a couple of rounds before he jets off to America. And then commentary team will have hopefully have a new commentary member join us to keep the three-person roster. But yeah, that aside there, we heard from Scott at the end of the last V8 Vet season when they raced at VIR, so that lined up with SCOPS as well, for good measure. He announced that he was basically intending to go privateer at that time, at least, was what I got out of the message that he gave at the end of the broadcast and such. But here we are, about a month or so later, Reese, and you paint a new look and new coat of paint for Scott, and we'll see here what he can do with a different team, different drivers around him. See what he is able to get out of the car now. although the coat of paint is about all that's really changed for him. A little boost through 1080-10B there on this first qualifying run. That probably wasn't helped by Jake O'Reilly going off. I think that's enough for Scott to say we'll try that again here in a moment's time. Looks like one of the first cars across the line will be Ben Morris there. I think that was it. It was indeed.
Yeah. All right. Well, looks like Damien Johnstone being the quickest car so far here. Seth Brown just 0.07 of a second behind him. Adam Blocker now coming up to the line in the number 74. Will he commit to the end of this lap? He will indeed. Let's see what the Americans down under driver will be able to do. 1 minute 20.4 for him, and that puts him just 0.03 of a second behind our split 2 winner, David Kirby.
All right, so we've got ourselves 12 cars with times on the board to get things started here in qualifying. A couple of drivers who didn't set laps or aborted theirs will head on back. Philip Kraus across the line will jump himself up into third place provisionally. Goes to a 1 minute 20.00. Well, iRacing says 0. My timing says 1 for the third decimal place. Makes me sort of wish we had 4 decimal place timing display it that way, Reese, because would be nice to know, and I believe it does actually time in the background to a 4th decimal place, but they've opted, and all timing softwares, to my knowledge, only display to the 3rd decimal place, because every now and again we do see dead heats to a millisecond, and you'd actually need to go and look at the 10,000th of a millisecond to go and find the tiebreaker in all of that there. But I do like for Philip Kraus that, okay, it shows up on our broadcast overlays as 0.001, but I'll go with iRacing calling it a 0.000. Nice and neat and tidy there.
All right then. First run's over for the most part. Second run's starting for quite a few drivers, but end of the first run for Zach McDonald. Yet to get a time on the board. Where does he put himself? Actually doesn't look like that was a hot lap. It was indeed an out lap there. We do have many drivers out on circuit at the moment trying to improve here, coming through turns 3 and 4 for Zach McDonald, and got to try and get the front end dialed in for that run down the hill. It's very easy to understeer off and ruin your run through these S's. He's in quite a pack as well, so there's going to be some issues for him actually getting a quick time on the board there. Goodness me, that is a pretty big smash just up ahead. Ewan Baker, oh no, sent into the wall and then spread eagle across the racetrack. That is a bit of an infraction there. It looks like he was trying to stay out of the way of Jacob O'Reilly, but Jacob, I don't think, anticipated that he would go over to the left-hand side of the circuit. And ultimately, James Chastaneuf caught Ewan Baker there as well. Yeah, you don't want to see that in qualifying.
No, not at all. Unfortunate, but also messy in many respects. And, oh, jeez. The biggest problem I've got there is we've got slow cars on the left side of the track, which is the racing line into a right-hander, the natural racing line into a right-hander. So it is probably, I mean, you obviously don't want to be on the right side up to a certain point as well, of course, because, well, then you're on the apex of the turn once you get there. But yeah, it's not great. It is why we try and have qualifying groups to minimize that kind of congestion issue, but it has unfortunately gotten a couple of people getting themselves crossed up. All the same. All right, let's see if we can pick up someone here like David Coleman, who looks to be on a flying lap attempt. Number 640 Machine Fishing Motorsports is going to be joined by, well, at least 2 drivers who made it into split 1 directly, himself as well as Thomas Freeman. They've been joined by Dave Kirby now to make it at least 3 here. So we'll see Freeman later on in the session. 20.65. First lap in for Coleman puts him 16th. As I've just heard Race Control order a car to cease qualifying. Apologies, there's a 4 Fishing Motorsports car. Blake Delaney in the 08. I'll try and get a confirmation on who that is for you in just a second here, Reese.
All right, well, we'll wait for that then as we check out Blake Delaney starting his first hot lap of the session. Delaney in the 08. His fastest time in practice was a 1 minute 20.39, and he was some ways down the field. He was actually the fifth last driver in the practice standings. So with the track all to himself, for the most part, he's got huge gap in front, huge gap behind. Let's see how quick he can really go. Actually, looks like he's actually backed off coming out of turn 5 there. I think the lap was over at that point. Either he made a mistake or nabbed an off track somewhere that would have ultimately invalidated the lap. It'll be interesting to see if he decides to stay out and commit to a second hot lap, or ends up going into the pits again. Teo Sorono, meanwhile, up to 9th place with that time. Good job there from the 111 of Pursuit Sim Racing. So at the moment, Johnstone looks like the pace setter here. Seth Brown, meanwhile, in the Pursuit number 5, well, he has got quite a bit to do as, dearie me, Ben Morris in the 243 looking to get a time on the board himself. He's not having much luck of it so far. Remember, the drivers only have 5 minutes left in the session, at least this first part of qualifying, before they have to make way for Group 1. How will James Chastaneuf do in the 427? He hasn't set a time yet either. And he was looking reasonably quick in the practice session. Just about nails the apex of turn 6. And turn 7 looks very nice as well. Beautiful, smooth exit. It's so easy to get on the power too hard out of slow corners like that and get a whack of oversteer. But Shasti certainly sorted that out. And it looks like Ewan Baker is the driver that has been excluded from the remainder of qualifying, Dan.
Yep, an incident with Jacob O'Reilly and others on that run to turn 6. Has seen the number 34 Scott KSR entry told to park up and stay in the pit. So Baker's currently 8th in the group, but with the gaps as tight as they are, it's going to be close. I think that might have just invalidated Chastaneuf's time. Indeed, lap 5 invalidated. There's also a risk that this current lap is also been set a wash, so I would expect Chastaneuf will bring the 427 straight back down to the pit lane. Blake Delaney looks to be on a lap here in the 08 Fishy Motorsports car. Can he put one on the board for himself? The answer is yes. He will get one on the board. A 120.6 though slots in ahead of his teammate, but unfortunately 2 of them are down towards the back of the group, it would seem. Actually being quote-unquote showed up at the moment by their teammate Split 2 winner Dave Kirby, who's currently sitting up there in 10th, relatively speaking here. Seth Brown looks to be also on a lap here. We should see if the number 5 can unseat the 033 from the top of the board.
Yep, Seth has to make up just about 7/100ths of a second if he wants to get that provisional pole, and just a little lift through the final corner there. 1 minute 20.03 though, 04. That unfortunately will not work out for him, but Justin Wallace makes a big improvement behind as the 3rd driver to get below the 1 minute 20 bracket in qualifying. Good performance there.
Yeah, that's a nicely timed run to get that one in, and also has time to go and set up for one more attempt as well, because so long as they're heading out of the pits with about 1 minute and 40 seconds to go, so you can have a nice gentle and steady outlap. So plenty of time to get back around and then get yourself into the pits. Right here, David Coleman's another attempt at a flying lap on a 120.6. Would certainly like to be a little bit closer to, say, David Kirby on a 120.2. Down into 10A, 10B. That car is looking... Well, it was sliding in a little bit, seemed, but got it turned back to the right to round off the chicane there as he come on down the back of the circuit, up and over the crest, turn 12 here. That's sliding sideways, but that's an improvement. Unfortunately for him, it'll just be an exchange with his teammate, Blake Delaney. Actually, we got Fishy 17, 18, 90 there, if we also make sure we include Michael Whiting in the mix in the 025. As Seth Brown's made it back to the pit lane. Oh, that's not how you enter the pit, Seth! Oh, dear.
Yep. sideways across the track at the entry to pit lane. Well, the only driver with no time so far is the 427er James Chastaneuf, and he is rapidly running out of time to get that lap on the board. Looks like he is gearing up now for one more attempt at a hot lap here. Chastaneuf's fastest time in practice was a 1:20.0. Here's another look at what happened to Seth Brown. And he just got it crossed up here, hit the concrete on the way in, and that's a massive hit to the wall. Just goes to show how dangerous that will be if that happened in a race. Either way, it's time to see what James Chastaneuf can do. If he can match his practice time, that'll put him into, I'd say, about 6th place as Teo Sorono goes quickest. 1:19.8. That is a massive improvement there from the Pursuit 111.
Well, consider that one. Didn't expect to see that one come. No, for a 20.2, which had him all the way down provisionally in 13th place, and pulls nearly 4/10 out of the bag. Nicely done for Sorono there. But other drivers now looking to get their times on the board to wrap up the group. 1 minute left on the clock for these drivers. So this is it for Chastaneuf. I mean, he could have guessed a bought and reset, but then the tyres certainly won't be able to deliver their best. As so far, it looks okay. Neat, tidy, but it might not necessarily be fast, which could be of part of me concerned for him as he comes down the backstretch here, winding up to top speed, and then on to the anchors. Again, looking calm, compliant. Morris goes to the top of the group.
Well, there's some big changes happening at the end of the session here.
With less than 30 seconds to go, Chastaneuf rounding turn 12 here. He's going to be in the 1 minute 20s with this lap here. 20.1 though will put him up into P11 as Dan Hall also just slips to P10. Craig Schultz jumps into the top 3. We've now got ourselves a top 7 under that 1 minute 20 barrier right in the dying seconds, and Seth Brown has just beat the clock beautifully by about 25 seconds. He'll get a chance for one more crack at it here as the checkered flag is called. And I think Sorono, the last car across the line, although I don't think he'll be able to go better than what he did so far in the session.
All right, well, we'll stick with Seth Brown here and keep an eye on the timing tower on the left-hand side of your screen, because there's undoubtedly going to be a few more changes to that after that massive flurry of improvements to times. The track temperature has gone up to 42 degrees, and it looks like the clouds have gone away for the time being, so potentially a little bit more energy being put into these tires, and so you might only get one lap with which to really strut your stuff, but it's going to be quick. So Seth Brown through 10A and 10B manages to just get the exit nicely. Didn't use as much of the curb as I expected him to. And across the final corner he will come. It's going to be a 1 minute 20.06. Unfortunately, no improvement there for Seth. Scott Gamble now will be on a lap here, but it actually looks like he has backed off.
Jacob O'Reilly next across the line is going to go for one just ahead of Ken Latta. O'Reilly 19.6.
Whoa, straight to P1. Kenneth Latta does not improve on his time. That was a massive lap by Jacob O'Reilly right at the end of the session.
Another 4/10 improvement for another driver. We just saying that Sorono finds the 4/10. O'Reilly goes from a 20.0 to a 19. Yeah, goes to that 19.6 value. So. And that is a proper 4/10 gain for the 222 machine. So there you go. Qualifying wraps up, and we will see our top 8 under that 1 minute 20 number. And O'Reilly putting over 2/10 on the rest of the group. Well, he's going to be in prime contention to be a bit of an upset on the grid, I would suggest. Especially with that lack of cloud cover at the moment and track temperature continuing to increase here, Reese, as we're just about to get ready for Group 2. They will get they'll get 17 minutes to set their times on the board to acknowledge or account for the fact that we do, of course, have the heat format to get this all into one server tonight, which means a hard cut when the timer hits 0.
Well then, that is the standings for the first group of qualifying. O'Reilly by 2/10 over Morris and Sorono, as well as Schultz and Johnstone. Very close gaps there from second to fifth. They're barely covered by half a tenth. Seth Brown will beat Philip Kraus by 6 thousandths of a second. Justin Wallace not too far behind either. And then it's Stovald and Blocker who round out the top 10 times so far. Then it's Hall and Chasteneuf, McDonald, Latter, Whiting, Baker, Kirby, Vlasablom, Gamble, and Coleman. All the way down to 20th, and Blake Delaney will be the last driver there on a 1 minute 20.608. We'll see if he remains plumb last as the session begins for Group 1. These are the drivers who were the cream of the crop in pre-qualifying, the top 20 times set over the few days of pre-qualifying held throughout the week. And leading the charge out on track is going to be Corey Preston in the 980. He's followed by Robert Gibbs, Luke Rosella, Griffin Gardner, Brenton Hobson, and Sean McNamara, the owner and leader of 95 Sim Sports. Already a little bit of jostling going about in the pack as everyone tries to find their little piece of real estate out on the track.
Slipstream valuable, of course, but at the same time, yeah, try and give yourself the room you need to be able to focus on putting a fast lap down on the board. As, yep, all winding up at the front of the field. As we'll check in here with your championship leader, Robbie Gibbs. Second in the train behind Preston. And I think, how about we ride on board here with Gibbs for a lap and see how he will handle the circuit of Road Atlanta, especially in these warming conditions race.
All right, on board around Road Atlanta. Let's see what we can do. Into turn 1, a very quick corner here. And uphill on the way out. Got to sort of aim towards that tree on the inside of turn 3 to really pick your straight line into the corner. But the actual turning point, hard to pick. It's a very blind corner indeed. How are the curbs ridden by Robbie Gibbs? Very nicely, actually. Didn't get too unstable over the curb on the right, which is probably the most unsettling of them all. And he's got actually a little bit of an advantage here. There's potential for a good slipstream down the front straight, down the back straight, sorry, with Corey Preston up ahead of him. How smooth is he on the throttle? Little bit of a correction on the way out of the corner, but hey, let's see if the championship leader has what it takes to set a stonking lap right away. Preston still leading the charge, and Gibbs hasn't caught up to him much, so it looks like Preston might be quick here as well. Into the braking zone, hard on the brakes. They put all of the pressure into the pedals down there through the dip, and just cutting the corner nicely. I don't think he would have gotten an off track from that. Good curb usage on the way out as well. Control the wheel spin as you go over the rise and through the right-hander to finish the lap. Here we go then. Gibbs sets a 19.659. Griffin Gardner goes to the top of the standings, and James Scott into second. Cameron Jones goes 14th fastest. Blake Warboys up into 7th in car 63. Brody Kostecki then goes to third spot. Ian Ford takes 7th away from Warboys and Ben Morris, who set that time in the first group of qualifying.
And yeah, no surprises to me that O'Reilly's 19.6 holds up all right, and it sees him split from the rest of his Group 1 drivers. We are, of course, yeah, we just count sequentially normally. Of course, 1 Group 2. Apologies for, I believe it's just the overlays giving us a fun time here as we try and named them Group 2 earlier. But alas, and it is what it is. Brett Loxton, unfortunately for him, it's not a fast start, but it's at least a time on the board. You can try and work from there at least. I'm sure he would have liked a little better, though. Luke Rosella, the number 29, one of our many Synergy Sim Racing entries here, works his way down into 10A, 10B. Now, Rosella on the last lap didn't get one in, but all the same, I expect he'll dive on into the pits here in a second. Yes, he will, because even though the first lap was invalid, I'm certainly sure that he wasn't hanging around and given he stayed with Robbie Gibbs the whole time. Yeah, that kind of is the proof in the points. So basically everyone files on in to the pit lane as the end of the first cycle completes. Drivers, yep, really throwing it in flat out. Certainly on the limits of control and, well, adhesion. Andrew Gilliam, unfortunately, is one who's a little bit too quick. Pit lane has grabbed the Armco, although, of course, faster ball resets are allowed in the pit lane once they hit their stall, so yeah, no harm, no foul there, all things considered. Loxton will go into the lane, which means we have 38 times on the board here, Reese, out of 41 possible. Here's Gilliam, yep, and just a little tank slap at the rear end getting away down the hill with that pit entry.
Yeah, easy mistake to make. As long as you don't do it in the race, though, you should be fine. Well, most of the field are out now for their second runs, and Blake Warboys is the one leading the pack here. Corey Preston also out early. It looks like Warboys already letting Corey Preston and potentially Sebastian Flock by him as well. He wants to get the benefit of the slipstream here. And have a look at this. This is sneaky. Corey Preston now falling behind Sebastian Flock. Nobody wants to be the first car in the train.
To some extent, no. Of course, having some clean air and so you can focus on your line and your rhythm up through the opening sector would always be nice. But yeah, the slipstream down this back straight is pretty beneficial as we start to see them clump up in the background of shot in particular. Where here we've got Warboys, Kostecki and Pereira lined up nose to tail. They are going to be joined by Griffin Gardner and others. Yep, no one's going to bother popping out of this line here. They'll all happily wait up in the queue somewhat. Now, thankfully, everyone here is on an outlap, so there isn't any issue with having to watch for drivers behind. But, yeah, they're all queuing up now behind Kostecki as Warboys has headed off to start his run. So we'll wait here if we can just wait with this camera for a second. There.
Oh, my God. Oh, dear. Okay, yeah, that's giving me big Monza 2019 vibes. They're almost stopped.
Yep, no one wants to go, but Kostecki will lead them off.
Yeah, well, someone has to be the first in the train.
Indeed. And thankfully they do go, because, yeah, you got Sebastian Flock, who decided to go ahead early. He's already up at turns 6 and 7, so at most 30 seconds behind the rear of the group. So, yeah, they do need to get a hurry on and get going to things, because here he is. Yeah, there's Flock. They've just come off the end of the back straight. Here he is, starting his run down the back straight in the 84 Evolution Racing Team Mustang, looking to improve on a 120.5. See if he can do it on this lap as he ticks past the minute marker as he sweeps on down the second half of the backstretch. Pulls it up. It looks fairly well behaved there. Reese through 10A and 10B. Maybe a little bit more curb is, pardon me, available to him to use. But sweeping on down into turn 12. This should be in the 19s.
Oh,
It'll
yeah.
just sneak into the 19s. That'll be enough to jump up to, where's he
17th.
at? 17th.
Corey Preston abandoning his hot lap there. Unfortunately, he couldn't find any improvement on that one. What's the story for Blake Warboys? He ends up committing to the end of the lap. Is this going to be an improvement on a 119.8? Across the line he comes, and oh man, he only gains 100th of a second. That's not going to be enough to improve his total position. Meanwhile, that pack that we were noticing making a bit of a parking lot of the braking zone for the chicane as Brody Kostecki catches the grass at the very end of the lap. That will be not invalidated, but a big loss of pace. Robert Gibbs will improve. James Scott up to P2. McNamara and Hobson up to 5th and 6th. Cameron Jones puts Brenton Hobson out of the top 6. And Michael Taliancic to P5 behind Andrew Gilliam there, getting the slipstream nicely. Brett Loxton abandoning that run. How many drivers have yet to set a time here? We're just down to one. Looks like Dylan O'Shea is the only car yet to set a time here.
Yep, I can see he's attempted 4 laps. Well, let's call that 2 actual attempts, we should say, because 2 of those laps would have been in laps, and this one's another in lap for him here, unfortunately. So, pardon me, this is actually...
Yeah, well, I mean, he was...
He's on his 5th lap, so this would count. Yeah, because lap 1 would have been an attempt, then lap 2 come in. 3 is an out lap. 4 go again. So, yeah. maybe for the sake of just putting something on the board. I mean, I guess it's a question of, yeah, is something on the board better than nothing on the board? Is this going to be in the 20s?
Yeah, he's going to deal with a lot of traffic on this lap, and he's going to abandon that.
Yes, stay on sequence with everyone else. Just going to make sure that the next time out here, you definitely get one on the board. So you've got at least one chance to really have a crack with something next to your name, at least.
Well, Brett Loxton, we saw him bring it into the pit lane, and now he's back out on the circuit and looking to improve on 38th spot. 1 minute 20.5, and his practice time was about 0.6 of a second faster than that, 19.9. That would likely put Loxton around the territory of Sebastian Flock and Justin Wallace. That's just on the verge of breaking into the top 20. So we'll see what Loxton can do here. He's not going to have the benefit of the draft being out there on his own, and quite the opposite to what Loxton's dealing with at the moment. Pretty much everyone else has come out in one long snake coming out of the pits for their final improvements.
Yes, Loxton, yeah, coming around now. This is, yeah, I guess it's going to be a problem. I hope the drivers are aware of what's up. First driver that Loxton's going to have to negotiate here. It looks to be Andrew Gilliam, Mike Taliancic, and Rehan Leonage is a group of 3 here. I think he's just going to catch them in time here on the run to turn 6. So, yeah, Leonage steps across to the side. Tally and Gilliam, though, are pushing on a little bit harder. Oh, Loxton's going to arrive on them right here in the middle of turn 6 and 7. They need to step on it.
Yeah,
Loxton,
this is
though,
going to be difficult.
Isn't flashing the headlights. Okay, so Leonage able to get out of the way without too much drama there. Looks like Loxton, yep, and yeah, Gilliam and Taliancic step aside in the slipstream, so they've thankfully picked up on that one there. So the 209 proceeds unabated, but now we've got the train.
Yeah, this is going to be awkward.
They're just trying to sort themselves out. Watch out, boys. We've got a car at full tilt, and you're on the racing line, all of you.
Oh, dear. Yeah, I think Loxton might have to abandon this lap. He's just picking his way through them right at the end of the lap. And there we go. That's a huge slide. And he actually goes off the circuit into the wall. Well, if you're Brett Loxton, I think you're very frustrated with how much everyone slows down at the end of their outlap. But that's the danger of running off sequence.
It is. Although Sebastian Flock, who is off sequence too, can he improve 19.8? Did he stay on enough on the road for that one to count?
He did, up to 14.
Just enough on the road for it to stay valid. Picks up another 10.5 to his name there as the rest of the train begins their next run. They might all get one more run in if they... actually, no, they might not here, because if they get this one done, they need another minute 20 or so to come back around. You know, this might just be it for everyone else, because, of course, that hard cut, you can't play around with it. You'd have to be in, then back out, and have at least a minute 20 on the board. So, who is going to improve on this flying lap attempt? Our top 3, less than 1/10 of a second in it, Reese. James Scott in the middle of it all. Only needs to find 2 100ths, if that, to best Griffin Gardner, who I think just there pulled out of the train.
Yeah, looks like it. Well, either way, we're on board with James Scott towards the front of this train, and well, he's going to abandon that. They're all going to go for another run here, and they will have time to do it. The drivers that have committed to this run, well, Thomas Freeman, actually coming to the end of a hot lap, made a massive improvement up to 14th place there in car number 6, so good on him for that. Looks like Dylan O'Shea, though, committing to a lap, and he'd certainly want to, because he still doesn't have a time on the board. Corey Preston across the line here to begin another hot lap. See what he can do in the 980 there, down in 26th spot at the moment, and if he can find a 10th, he will break into 24th spot. Potential for 3 places gained on the grid. That can make all the difference in this series.
Yeah, it can. He is going to be a fair ways back at this stage, unless things turn around here on what this will be his final flying lap attempt. Dylan O'Shea still doesn't have a time on the board. Okay, this has not gone well for the driver of the 119 machine to get something even close to competitive. He is on one now at least, but And here comes everyone else at that train, although a couple of them at the front of it, starting to, all of them actually peeling off into the pit lane. So O'Shea, this is looking okay here. Brings this one around. He will commit to finish this one off. Looking to see if this will be a 19 or maybe a 20. It's actually going to be a 1 minute 20.0. So that's a second off the pace, but enough for P26 at least. And that will be his qualifying done, Reese. Not enough time to get back in and get back out again.
Yeah, I think O'Shea will be unhappy with how the session went for him because, just adding to that, that time he set is 8/10 off his practice time. Corey Preston, meanwhile, gets into the 19.7s. That's a big improvement for him, up to 14th spot. Beautiful job from Corey Preston. Brenton Hobson will start his final hot lap just behind him as well. So a lot of stories coming out of qualifying here at the moment. A few drivers unhappy with how things have gone for them. A few drivers still left to improve. And Hobson was a little bit fast and loose with the track limits at turn 3 there. Might he have gotten an off track?
We'll have to see. Actually, can I see? It's possible that I can. I think I can actually see incidents currently at the moment this evening. And so far, I don't see anything. That suggests Hobson has invalidated this one. He's certainly pushing, though, in the 88. But nice and tidy, it seems, off the exit of turn 7 for the run down this back straight one last time in this session. He's looking to find, he's going to have to find at least a 10th of a second to improve up to 7th, and then just a bit more than a 10th could get him to 6th here. The gaps in the second half of the top 10 are fairly large. Brett Loxton's just jumped up to 31st. In the 209 to conclude his qualifying run here. What can the 88 do? Currently in 8th, but is P6 beckoning? No, Hobson abandons.
Well, not committing to the end of it either is car number 61 of Dylan Pereira, but Brody Kostecki might be looking at a run at pole position here. What's it going to be? 19.3 for Kostecki. That is an improvement in time by a couple of hundredths, but it won't be enough to get him into the top 3. So Griffin Gardner, it seems, unless there's someone out there at the moment who can overcome him, looks like he'll get pole position for the first race of the night here at Road Atlanta. Yeah, seems to me like that is qualifying done. No one else able to overcome the number 93 from 9.5 Sim Sports. It's going to be Griffin Gardner starting alongside James Scott on the front row of the grid. They are followed by Andrew Gilliam and Brody Kostecki, with Mike Taliancic and Sean McNamara rounding out the top 6. Good job all round from the Synergy 9.5 and Pursuit squads. Starting in 7th spot behind these drivers is going to be the 019 of Cameron Jones. He is alongside Brenton Hobson, veteran in the number 88. Another V8SCOPS veteran, Ian Ford, will start alongside championship leader Robbie Gibbs, a relatively new signing to the Evolution Racing team. Rayhan Leonage is going to start in 11th spot alongside Jacob O'Reilly to round out the top 12.
13th on the grid for race 1's going to be in the hands of Luke Rosella there in the number 29, sharing that 7th row with Corey Preston there. After that late improvement for the 980 machine. Thomas Freeman, first of our Fishy Motorsport cars, sharing the 8th row with Sebastian Flock there in 16th. Ben Morris going to start this one in 17th, the Blake War Boys alongside him for 18th. The top 20 running out by Teo Savrono and Craig Schultz there in one of our 9.5 SimSport cars. Damien Johnson, the 21st, and Synergy in the 033 has got Dylan Pereira alongside in 22nd. Row 12 rounded out here by Seth Brown in the number 5, and Philip Krause as we get more of our split 2 drivers here in this second half race.
Indeed, Justin Wallace is going to start alongside Jamie Stovall, 25th and 26th. Dylan O'Shea, a lot more should have come from that car in qualifying, but he'll have to settle for 27th alongside Thomas Hinz, with Adam Blocker, the second of our America's Down Under cars, starting alongside Dan Hall. Brett Loxton will start in 31st place alongside James Chastaneuf, and then we have Zach McDonald and Kenneth Latter, 33rd and 34th. 35th place is going to be Michael Whiting. He starts alongside Ewan Baker, who was excluded from the rest of qualifying after that incident we saw in Group 1. David Kirby and Zach Vlasblom will start behind them. And then it's Scott Gamble and David Coleman on the final full row of the grid. 41st and last to start the race will be Blake Delaney for Fishy Motorsports. And of course, we have our 2 race directors, plus Daniel Stevens helping out in the steward's box. Guy that we've seen driving quite a bit here in SimSpeed broadcasts over the years. And of course, the safety car will potentially come out as well if there's a big enough incident out on track. So, compulsory pit stops in both of these races tonight. 2 30-lappers, the first of which will be starting in just under half a minute's time. Who is going to get the best start here? And who will be the first to pull the trigger on a compulsory pit stop? Who will get their fuel numbers right as well? We saw how badly that worked out for Ben Christensen in Super Split 2. They will be right on it here, keeping an eye on their fuel numbers, figuring out just how much they need to get to the end. They'll want to run the cars as light as possible. Let's see then who gets the best possible run towards turn 1 here at the magnificent Road Atlanta circuit. Revs rise and V8SCOPS round 7 is go. Look at Griffin Gardner there. Unfortunately, not getting quite as good of an initial getaway as James Scott, who blocks Andrew Gilliam, chops the nose off the 201 Pursuit Mustang, and hard into turn 1 goes Brody Kostecki to try and get into the top 3. Your leader remains Griffin Gardner as they come into turn 3 for the first time. Kostecki still monstering the back of Andrew Gilliam. Michael Taliancic chasing hard along with Sean McNamara. The field gets single file as Damian Johnstone also gets past Thomas Hins. Seth Brown passes Dylan O'Shea for 22nd spot. Out of turn 5. This is the first big choke point of the lap, I think. If someone makes a mistake here, it is the rest of the field at risk. But it looks like the majority of the drivers have made it through cleanly, though I do see Michael Whiting and Craig Schultz starting to drop. Griffin Gardner, though, with the best possible start, leading by 0.7 of a second.
Yeah, he's done the right. We've got the start right here. Craig Schultz, unfortunately, incident on the run up to turn 3. Saw him, knocked off course, and that sent him out into the concrete up the hill. So he took a hefty whack, and yeah, absolute bit more chaotic in the mid pack, I have to say, where my cameras have gotten themselves stuck. I'm seeing 3 wide on that one here. Philip Kraus up the inside of maybe Thomas Hins there.
Oh no,
Kraus around on the exit. Lockers involved, teammate there. Then we've got one of the Henry HAR cars, and then traffic jam at turn 11, and it's Chasneff around in the 427 as they're trying to sort themselves out in the process.
Well, that was a messy end to lap 1, but no one will be able to come into the pits and get their compulsory pit stop out of the way now. I mean, they could come into the pits if they wanted to, but it won't count as their compulsory stop. It's the end of this lap they're on now, lap 2, that they'll be able to come in and get their stops out of the way. But kept pretty clean up the front, have to say. Gardner's lead is extending 0.7 of a second still from James Scott, but we keep an eye here on Michael Taliancic, who's getting chased down by Sean McNamara, almost on the rear bumper of the 777, is the leader of 9.5 Sim Sports. And now, this is the Slipstream Central along this back straight. Doesn't look like there's much potential for a run into the chicane, but behind them, Cameron Jones having to go defensive versus Ian Ford and Robbie Gibbs. Gibbs still remaining in 10th spot. Championship leader as well. He's got to work things out here as Ford goes deep, and Gibbs will have to try and find a way past his teammate here, lest Rehan Leonage get by, and the number 79 outside line into the final corner. We already have cars coming into the pit lane, but it's successfully defended by Gibbs there versus Leonage, as now Luke Rosella looks to try and make his way past the youngest driver in the field.
And Ford up the inside of Jones at turn 1 was able to stick that one through despite losing it. Rosella locks the brake into turn 3, and Leonage sees that one coming. Preston's tapped around by O'Reilly in the 222. That's going to cause problems. They eclipse another car there in the middle of that group. That knocks the rear wing off the 980 machine.
If Corey Preston didn't have bad luck, he'd have no luck at all. I swear. It's a real shame because he's a consistent driver. He's been on a massive improvement run over the last couple of years and just keeps getting tapped around and involved in incidents not of his own doing. Here's another view of it. Preston had to check up there with that pass. So I would argue that O'Reilly probably should have seen that one coming.
Yeah, it's a reasonable, I think, position and observation to make there in that one. And indeed, yeah, not nothing Preston can do. He's got to check up for the fact that Leonage has checked up to avoid getting entangled with Rosella, thanks to the fact that Rosella was in a little hot for turn 3, but nevertheless, all drivers in front there pulled it up. So they did what they needed to do. Unfortunately, chain reaction, the further you go back, the earlier the reactions you need, and the more awareness you're going to need to be able to make sure you stay out of trouble. Half a second between your top two, meanwhile. Gardner still leading. So, oh, Jones and Gibbs have got together at turn 1. As it, the 9 is in the wall on the exit.
Okay, then.
Decent bit of panel damage there on the right side of Jones's car, and it's a mechanical black flag to boot. Let's have a look at the replay here. So I saw 4 going up the inside off screen, and that's Gibbs trying to do the same, but he's not there. Reese, and then 2 taps, and that, yeah, as the rear end comes around.
Real fair whack to the wall, and that probably would have broken a few suspension components on that machine. Well, regardless, we'll see how things go for Jones as he tries his best to keep this pack here behind him. That mechanical black flag doesn't seem to have hurt his pace all that much. Meanwhile, Brody Kostecki in the Boost Mobile entry gets past Andrew Gilliam and up into the top 3.
There we go. Nice late maneuver indeed. But if we are got to find about a second to get on the back of James Scott. There's Gibbs and Rosella this time.
Oh, dear.
Fighting over 10th place at 10A, 10B. Now, Rosella was...
he made the move on Leonage, but actually ran a bit deep here.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah. Yeah, overcooks it under brakes. And then you just a bit of back. Okay, then Gibbs able to crisscross underneath him there to avoid that one, but still got a cloud over Gibbs's head incoming, thanks to what happened with Jones. So yeah, just now, question actually was, how did that start for Leonage?
Grab another replay here. Looks like Adam Blocker here making a move on Zach McDonald, who gets bumped off at the exit of the corner and into the tyre barriers. Doesn't look like too heavy damage there to the 9.5 machine, but still a huge loss of time that Zach wouldn't want to deal with. So, as things stand here, James Scott is actually gaining on Griffin Gardner here. The battle for the lead is certainly on. I think James Scott might have gotten a little bit of a hurry up when he saw that Brody Kostecki had passed Andrew Gilliam, probably thinking, okay, this is going to be under threat here, second place. I'm going to have to turn up the dial and try and get past Griffin into the race lead. They've still got some time left before they can think about taking their pit stops. Few drivers have taken their compulsory stops so far. Thomas Freeman, David Coleman, Damian Johnstone as well. And it looks like Craig Schultz has also come into the lane. But of course, that was for damage repair as well. Cameron Jones has made his way into the pits to get his mechanical black flag cleared. He is still getting that damage repaired.
Yeah, it's probably going to be a lengthy one. As we said, a bit of a slap, unfortunately for him, into solid concrete on the right rear corner. Will be, probably should be, a lengthy fix-up job. Now,
issue for Ewan Baker, I've just noticed.
So look at here on the replay. So Michael Whiting in behind there. That's just in deep from the 34. Offline because of the fact that you've had Baker in behind. But thankfully, just a lock-up, short trip through the grass. We carry on. Nothing too much ado about that. Back to the live pictures in the race lead, recent. Gap is starting to come down 10th by 10th. Here, meanwhile, Gibbs defending. What's this? This is overtaking Leonage. That's a spot done. And Rosella's going to get a spot there after a little bit of a nibble there from the bumper of the number 2 for the 79 as a cost him there. Now, going back to Rosella, actually, I had a look through the whole lap just to get my head around because I was like trying to figure out who was where and what. Rosella was ahead the entire lap, but had to check up because of the incident with Gibbs and Jones. That was what Leonardo's back bumper, and was defending the spot the entire time. Never actually lost the spot or retook the spot from Leonardo back on. That was the end of lap 4, but something's happened to Thomas Hinz. He just called out over the radio, the 52, as no extension. He's still going.
Might have been an issue with Seth Brown.
Yes, it will have been. Looks like it's a bit of a side-by-side attempt to get through turn 1. And looking at my... little mistake from Seth Brown, but both cars stay on the road in the end of it all. So we'll see if maybe a redress order's in called for this here, Reece.
Yeah, too much curb. Made the car go straight at the apex of the corner and just put him straight into Hinsey. We also have our first race control decision of the race. Looks like Jacob O'Reilly getting a 10-second pit time penalty for that incident, turning Corey Preston around.
Yeah, not too surprising there. So that'll be tacked on to his... Well, have to stay in his pit box for an additional 10 seconds. So makes that nice and easy enough to see there. So we'll see him drop down the order when that pit stop comes. As we go on board live with Rehan Leonage looking at the back of Luke Rosella, who's, there's all of the dicing between these three. Been able to get back into 10th place, Leonage. Now, back where he started this one. We'll check in with them later, because speaking of Preston, here he is!
Oh, no, not again! At the same corner, no less.
Yeah, Adam Blocker there in the 74. Scott Gamble in behind Blocker. I have to say that one, though, didn't really seem as a clear-cut Preston at fault, I have to say. From that angle and look at least, we might want to try and get a read on what's happening here, as there's been an issue for Sebastian Flock and Dylan O'Shea up at turn 7, I think, because they're going very slow, those two, or were going slow. And looks maybe a bit of a...
Oh, big news for Robbie Gibbs. He's just gotten a drive-through penalty for that contact we saw back on lap 4. That is rather large for our championship leader. Great potential for points lost from that. So here's the onboard view from Blocker on Preston. And, I mean, Preston was firing it towards the inside of the corner. It looked like he turned in a tiny bit early, but still... I get the feeling that, honestly, I don't really know how to call that. I'll leave that to the guys in race control.
I mean, when I look at that one from that onboard angle there, that one says to me more Blockers racing with Gamble alongside him there at that point in time. Preston, for the most part, has the right of way to turn in for the apex at the start of the S's there, and then needs to turn in to make it in that right-hand corner, and has a bit of a misjudgment there, perhaps you could say, I'd say, from Blocker in trying to fight with Gamble there, has resulted in the contact. But indeed, as you said, we'll leave that one to race control to put through the meat grinder, because that one might need a few more looks rather than the one that we just had there at least. So top 4, it's closing up a little bit, but only really between the top 3 of said 4. I'd say Andrew Gilliam, a little wide there. He'll take an off track for his troubles. Gilliam's not really making inroads on Gardner at the front of the group, but Kostecki obviously has clearly closed up a little bit closer to the top 2. Scott still hanging in second place. So Preston and Baker have gotten together at 10A, 10B. As O'Reilly is going to be the first driver to go for a pit stop from the front half of the field at least. And
no.
Now the 980 is facing the wrong way. Made that right way again, but now...
This has been a pretty chaotic race for Corey Preston. He just made the move on Ewan Baker, did push him a little wide off the road, and then as Baker came back on it, ended up turning Preston around. So... very unfortunate runnings here. We'll get it on the replay.
So he's in deep. From that angle there, we might want to try and get another shot if we can, perhaps, either on board with Baker or a shot that gives us a sort of a higher down look, perhaps. Just unfortunately, we lose it there behind the pack of cars. But while we were just cutting the replay, look at this exit here of turn 5 for Seth Brown-Reese. That is opposite lock. And as a result, wobble grass.
Ooh.
Keeps out of the wall, but we'll lose the spot to lost the spot to Thomas Inns. And I think Jamie Stovall might have had a half a look, but no. Thankfully, here's another look there for Preston and Baker. So see up the inside, yeah, fair enough. But he's in hot, and Baker's still there. Yeah, I'm not sure what can be done about that there. Baker trying to contest the spot. Both drivers are in hot enough that only one driver is going to stay on the racetrack there, and as a result, Baker off the road, and then not enough grip to turn it to the right to be able to avoid a second contact, which, as we saw there, turned Preston.
Well, once again, race control with an awful lot of work to do in V8SCOPS Split 1. It is on for second, though, because look at Brody Kostecki gradually drafting up to the back of James Scott. The weave is on from our top drivers. Scott trying his best to hold on to the slipstream of Griffin Gardner, give him any advantage he can over the chasing Kostecki. Through 10A and 10B, it seems they've worked it out nicely. Not much of a protest from any of the cars involved, but as they come through the final corner, this is where things will get interesting. Coming up to turn 1, Kostecki, you can see just how hard he's pushing, getting into the grass once more, coming off the exit curb of the first turn here. Across the rise, coming into turn 3. They all nail that turn-in point, but you could argue that Kostecki maybe didn't cut the curb as much as he should have. He has lost a tiny bit of time to Scott and Gardner in the process.
Yeah, it's going to be important to see here if Andrew Gilliam keeping anything. I mean, the thing is, I'd say maybe he's keeping something at bay, but I saw him pushing hard at the final corner and he lost a spot in the process, so it's hard to say that's what's happening there. So it could be a sign here Gilliam doesn't quite have the race car underneath him at this point. That's just because he's definitely got the driving ability, that's for sure. Hello, who is... Oh, is that Preston off from the weeds, trying to avoid everyone? Okay, so unfortunately for Preston, he is having a real hard time getting that car back around to the pits as we stay on board with Mike Taliancic. McNamara looking for this 5th place off the 777. He'll go the long way around at 10A, but if he can get this right, pull it up. And yeah, this is what we want to see, obviously, at 10A, 10B. McNamara nose ahead on the inside. Ford's looking too there, but the door will be shut by McNamara as they sweep down the hill. On board now with the 115 driver in 7th. Place 5
Hobson
by McNamara. And indeed, Hobson is in behind, but the 88 will stay in 8th.
Oh, Taliancic locking up there as Ford decides to go for the outside at turn 1. This is a nice battle that's going on between these four. Looks like McNamara has the advantage for now. A nice gap of about a car length back to Taliancic, but now Ian Ford in the middle of a Taliancic-Hobson sandwich. Let's see if he has what it takes to find his way past the 777. All of them working the bumps at the exit of turn 5 nicely. Not much in the way of protestations from the rear end. But now when they get to the back straight, it's going to be the slipstream that's on here.
Ooh. Nice little move from Thomas Freeman. Meanwhile, into turn 1, just picked up 2 places on... that was Zach Mack and his teammate Michael Whiting. Little spicy little battle pack back there. They're currently fighting over 28th place on backwards. Here it is on the replay.
Oh, God.
Yeah, so Freeman's on fresh tyres, we should add, out of this bunch, and able to get it up the inside, and just enough space left for McDonald on the outside. Whiting, thankfully, must have been aware or been given a hint that was coming, able to back out enough to not make that a 3-wide affair through the corner proper. Let's go back to live pictures and the fight for what is now 9th place. Rosella and Leonage still stuck together on the road. Ben Morris, though, will come down to the pits here just before the halfway mark of this race in that 2-4-3 machine.
Well, it looks like not much change in this battle for 5th, but they're still staying tightly glued together.
10A, 10B.
Oh, no, not again. Who is it this time?
Ewan Baker again. It's actually the battle pack that we were just looking at on the replay. As that drive-through penalty has come through for Baker. Contact with Preston, I would
Yeah, that would
See
be
here?
like a dangerous re-entry, I would presume. But Baker on the outside of this one. Oh.
Yeah. Chastaneuf trying to break deep to cut off Freeman. Baker's already turning in for the corner, and he only just recovers that now, so we'll have to... Oh, okay. He's not impressed by the decision there from race control.
Well, either way, race control's decisions are final, and there is an appeals process. Griffin Gardner, meanwhile, coming into the pits from the race lead. That's the first of our top drivers to make the call, and it looks like Sean McNamara and Ian Ford will follow him in. Not too early of a pit stop, actually. This is bang on the halfway mark of the race, or thereabouts. So now it's going to be up to Brody Kostecki and James Scott here. Actually, Kostecki.
When do they switch places?
Hello.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Well, all of the drama has been elsewhere on track. This has flown under the radar.
Happened actually a lap or two ago.
Yeah, I'm trying to scroll back and find it.
It happened on the front. It happened on the back straight on lap 13. Just straight up, slipstreaming by.
That'll do it.
All that it was. But now, for Brody Kostecki, James Scott, and Andrew Gilliam behind him, they face a bit of a conundrum here. Do they respond immediately to the pit stops from the drivers around them, or do they give it a few more laps, try and potentially overcut them? I mean, it is a very hot track out there, so the undercut will be very powerful already. 52 degrees track temperature. Those tires will be going through it.
Yep. You can get hotter at some locations, but that's pretty rough on the rubber here. So I would suggest, unless Kostecki and Scott and Gilliam don't have the tyre life in them to know they can press on, that's why you might go longer here, sacrifice a little bit in the opening stint to make sure you're good for the second half. And indeed, your top four, yet to pit, are going to stay out. Another lap here. Yeah, I think for someone like Andrew Gilliam, that'll be important. As replay with Sebastian Flock on board, that is Dylan Pereira in front. That's Rehan Leonage, boys. Nice little indeed time gain down through the pit lane, able to keep that car under control. Leonage, I did see he was slow off of 10A, 10B earlier, which was prior to that start of the replay run. Yeah, but Flock makes some good gains there. They come out of the pits, though. You can see Leonage, actually, though, a well ways up the road after that pit stop. And that has happened... 8.9 seconds for Leonage. He's either started with more fuel in his car and therefore not needed to add fuel to finish this race off, or gotten a very fortuitous pit stop here, Reese.
We'll keep an eye on that, but our leaders have responded. Brody Kostecki, James Scott, and Andrew Gilliam in the pit lane. Michael Talyancic staying out. We now only have Talyancic and Loxton left to take their stops. Dylan Pereira just coming in behind these guys. So, Talyancic going long here. And it looks like Loxton's going in as well. So it looks like the only other driver left to actually take their compulsory stop, James Chastaneuf has already taken his. Adam Blocker in 18th has not actually served his proper pit stop yet, according to my timing. But they're all out at the moment now. And we'll get the onboard of Brenton Hobson here as he came in for his stop. How did this go for the number 88? Not good, apparently. Hitting the concrete and the Armco for good measure. That is damage that Hobbo would not have wanted to deal with. But we saw that it worked out well for Griffin Gardner. He is back in the race lead effective. And he's actually gained quite a bit of time on Kostecki and Scott. So undercut is where it's at in these kinds of temperatures.
Yeah, absolutely. Undercut's always going to be strong, of course, when we look at it in the first couple of laps. It's just a question of do Kostecki and Scott think they've got better long run pace, or expecting Gardner's tyres to fall off towards the end of the stint. As Rosella up the inside of Leonage, these two have not been able to be separated all race long, it feels like, Reese, because Rosella gets himself back up the inside of the 79 there. On saying that, actually, no, Leonage tried stealing out there on the brakes. Rosella takes it back through the corners itself proper. So that order has been restored once again. But yeah, I'm just have to say, an actually similar thing. Andrew Gilliam, one of the fastest pit stops of the race at 8.7 seconds. So I think we're seeing a case of a couple of drivers who made sure to have enough fuel in the car to finish the race, and maybe just a tiny top off that was well under what was needed, versus drivers who were maybe a little on the shorter side and just put in some more fuel. Like, for example, you compare, say, Andrew Gilliam's time to, say, Sean McNamara's, for example, or in the case of, Rehan Leonage with Sebastian Flock, because they came basically in nose to tail, yet they've come out quite a bit apart, and you can see 1.7 seconds of it was done stationary in the pits.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, time spent stationary is the biggest deciding factor, isn't it? Speaking of time spent stationary, we're about to see how long Talyancic is spending there, because he is now in the lane. The field will be cleansed. Last car, at least in the top group, to make his stop. And remember, he was running in and around Ian Ford and Sean McNamara, but he is going to lose out massively here. They're already sailing by and out of turn one as Talyancic exits the pits behind them.
Yep, that's not helped Talyancic's case. Not too shocking in my mind. He's actually lost out to Hobson as well.
Yeah, and that's even with Hobson's poor pit entry and taking damage too. So, yeah, going long, not the way to go.
It's not the way to go if you're worried about track position right out of the pit stop. And if you're worried about track position, I guess, full stop.
Yeah.
But as always, maybe Talyancic can turn it around. Maybe he knows he can then afford to push that little bit harder now that he's got 3-4 lap younger tyres than the drivers directly. Loxton and Coleman might have gotten involved in something. The 640 is parked up down the S's.
Oh dear.
Car hasn't been refired just yet. I can still see the engine stall light's still on. Oh, it's going again. We'll see if he gets moving here in a second. Yes. Okay, so we will stay green here at least. But what has happened between these two, Reese?
Okay, so was there contact there? I'm honestly not sure. Well, there was definitely contact there, and Coleman bumped around by Loxton after he recovered from his slide, and of course that just completely stalled the car out. Not much to be done there. Well, here we go then. Undercut for track position, you say, Dan. Well, now that the tyres are starting to go past their best for Griffin Gardner, Brody Kostecki is coming back at him. 2-lap fresher tyres. He is still in the prime phase of grip.
I mean, yeah, undercut gets you the early track position, and if you can hang on to it, that's great and all. But at the same time, it can be a mixed bag, and we'll have to see here if Kostecki presses on. He's certainly looking like it as we head down towards 10A, 10B once again on the brakes. Gardner isn't going to put up too much of a contest. It seems he'll look to just take the normal line through there. So new race leader, 696. Brody Kostecki, outright leading position there as they work their way down the hill. 10 laps to go here as they cross the line.
And James Scott having a big look up the inside into turn one, but Gardner holds on, and I think it would have been an optimistic move to make in any case. It's going to be up to Gardner to see if he can keep pace with Kostecki. Otherwise, Scott will get a bit impatient. Remember, Scott pitted at the same time as Kostecki and was within a good margin of time to him when they came into the pits. So Scott still thinks he has a chance at winning this one. Will he be able to clear Griffin Gardner in time? Because definitely looks like the 93 is losing out on pace now that the tyres are starting to fall off. Oh, a little bit of a tap to the rear on the way into turn 6 as well. With Scott as close as he is, I think the slipstream is going to decide this. Gardner tries to stick with Kostecki here. A little bit of weaving going on potentially there, or half running the racing line. Scott pulls out, and we'll have the inside for 10-8. Nice and deep on the brakes, and he clears Gardner by the time they get to the apex. So our former race leader and pole sitter now down to 3rd. There's a comparison to what the track conditions are like in the race versus what they were in qualifying. And it makes a huge difference to the kinds of times that we are seeing. The drivers were setting low 19s. It was a 19.1 or thereabouts for Griffin Gardner on pole position. Gardner's fastest lap in the race was a 19.89. So that shows you just how much pace has been lost, how very little grip is in those tires right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's only 2 laps, but it's clearly, paying the price there. I have to admit, didn't quite think I were going to see this much of a penalty to Gardner. Thought maybe he was just going to manage the tires a little bit as we watch Ian Ford and Sean McNamara still checking out nicely here on everyone behind them. So 5th and 6th for the two of them. Meanwhile, a little bit of contact between Dan Hall and Thomas Ince has seen those two exchange places at turn 1, and Robbie Gibbs takes full advantage as a result here. So Hinsey up the inside, leans on Hall on the exit of the corner there, slows them both down enough that Gibbs up the inside puts the foot down over the rise, takes a spot away there into turn 3.
Well, now, hard on the back of Ian Ford is Sean McNamara. Will there be a pass potentially made here at the first turn? It looks like a much better run through the final corner for McNamara, and he has the momentum. He's going to pull alongside potentially. No, front stretch is just too short for him to get alongside in time. And I mean, passes can be possible here into turn 3, but you've got to have a mega run out of turn 1 in order to have that happen cleanly. So McNamara, I think, is just going to have to wait until 10A once again.
Yeah, that would seem to be the case as we go back to this group of cars of Gibbs, Hins, Hall, and now David Coleman. Unfortunately for David Coleman, though, he's not going to be in this group all that much longer. Well, he's in the group to the end of the race, but come results time, Reese, that won't be the case. He's just been issued a 10-second post-race penalty for the secondary contact with Brett Loxton. Back on happen. As I'm being told, he's also lapped down, so not even in this fight, he's just on the road with them. And that makes sense given the struggle that Coleman had getting the car fired back up. But yeah, that was back on lap 19, which feels like a while ago, but no, it was only 5 laps, or 4 laps for the lead lap drivers, so yeah, all of that. Quick look here at drivers who have been making the moves this race, and after a pretty average, well, actually no, subpar qualifying, I'm sure he would say, Dylan O'Shea has been making the moves once again. Got himself up 16 spots to 11th, and eyeing off maybe a top 10 here if he can latch onto the back of Rehan Leonage there, Reese.
Yeah, I think O'Shea should be happy with how his race has been going so far. And I mean, depending on what kind of pace he has coming towards the end of the race, still 7 laps left here, he might not only be able to get to Leonage, but potentially the synergy pair of Rosella and Hobson as well. O'Shea on the same strategy as Hobson and Rosella, though. So it'll all come down to who has the better tyre management there. Leonage pitting a lap earlier and will be suffering just a little bit more as the stint wears on. O'Shea now in the slipstream, and I wouldn't expect these two Synergy cars to fight each other too hard. They know that O'Shea and Leonage are right behind them, and any kind of exchange between them will cost them valuable time. That said, Rosella, with a big slipstream down the straight, not close enough to get the move done on Hobson, but somehow I get the feeling that, especially with the amount of positions Rosella's made up already, there might be a move in the future.
Yeah, Rosella up 4 in this race so far. as they come to 6 laps to go for themselves as well. A little mistake like that, though, from Hobbo. That might just invite Rosella in, but he won't go for it just yet. The question of, are there team orders at Synergy tonight, or is this going to be allowed to race itself out to the end of this first one here, given they've got Leonage and O'Shea following them around the circuit as well. I can also see, and I feel like it's come in somewhat recently, the 427 of James Chastaneff black flag for contact back on lap 30. I've been told that that's already been noticed by Director Joe Kennedy, so I'm just having a bit of a blank moment, which makes sense given we're on lap 25 already. And it was for the contact with Ewan Baker before he left the server. And it's a good reminder there. Thank you, Mr. Kennedy, being there in the background as always and keeping tabs on this stuff even when I forget. Meanwhile, Ian Ford, Shaw McNamara at it once again. Race this time. Ford feeling I need to defend into 10A, 10B. And McNamara, a little inside-outside. As speaking of exchange places, Rosella and Hobson will switch spots there. As you've seen something else?
Yeah, well, slightly off camera, Leonage looked like he went very deep into the chicane, trying to make up some time there, and I thought for sure he was going to go off, but he didn't. So things will remain the same there. The swap has been done between the Synergy cars. And now it'll be up to Hobson to try and keep Leonage and O'Shea behind him. We'll have another look at this for Leonage. See how much ground he made up on the 2 Synergy cars. How he pulled that up, I have no idea.
Right at the limit of braking, as there's a bit of scrapping going on for just inside the top 20. Started with Teo Sorono and Ken Latter at 10A, 10B. I think it ends up with Gibbs and Hins through into the 2 spots that those cars had previously occupied. And Sorono ran it off into the dirt on the exit of turn 12. So that puts the 111 down to 22nd. And now sort of becomes a long old train from 18th through to 25th. Almost call that one. No, we'll leave it there at 25th. O'Reilly's at the background of shot, but not quite on the train just yet. So that was an interesting one there. Let's try to see if I can pick up where this all started. Again, so it was on the back straight into 10A. Might be worth going back and have a look at it if we can, perhaps. Just to see the whole thing play out in terms of how they ended up the way they were if we get a chance. But we'll check in with that later, perhaps.
Yeah, we will stay on board here with Brenton Hobson because he's dropping time quickly. And Rayan Leonage starting to monster the back of the Synergy Commodore. O'Shea just sitting there observing for the time being, waiting to see if he can make some kind of move. But you can already see the pace difference between Rosella and Hobson there. The blue Synergy car of Luke is jetting away at the moment and gaining bulk time on these 3. Here then is the incident. Teo Sorono on the inside there, coming into the 10A complex, and yeah, that was very close to a spin there between them, and Gibbs up behind Latter, taking advantage. Side by side through the final turn is a huge time loss for both cars involved, and oh dear, Sorono actually going off there at the exit of the final turn. This is quite a fun exchange, and Latter just holding on to a place on the track there as well.
I get the feeling both Latter and Sorono probably wouldn't use fun as the descriptive word there. Feisty and
O'Shea.
Unfortunate, perhaps, might come through the words, as Leonage trapped up behind Hobson there through 10A, 10B. Nearly passed by O'Shea, but they carry on. 3 laps to go for this bunch now as they make the rise up turn 1 once again. This group continues to fight. It's actually now Scott Gamble eyeing off Sorono in turn 12. That's not going to work, so he will lift out there and then come under pressure from Jamie Stovall in the 987 Synergy car. If it goes defensive immediately, so it's going to have to be the outside. Stovall, he's trying to stay there, but Gamble, enough pace, which actually shuts that one off, and Stovall not too impressed, apparently, with how that played out. Well, that's a development right there. I might have brushed off Taliancic's ability to catch these guys, but 4 laps younger tyres. it's like it turned itself around again here at the back end of the race. And in fact, don't count out Griffin Gardner for second while I'm looking at it, maybe.
Oh, Taliancic locks up a little, though. McNamara almost sees a chance, but goes off. Wasn't able to commit to the turn, and potentially there was contact involved in that as well. But either way, Taliancic is through. Yeah, once again, don't count out Griffin Gardner for second, because let's look at his last lap time. 1 minute 20.74. Compare that to a 1 minute 20.8 for both Brody Kostecki and James Scott. Tiny gains are happening for Griffin Gardner at the moment when they're on the second last lap of the race. This is still very much up for grabs for our pole sitter.
He's on older tyres too, so if he makes this work, it's going to be quite impressive to say the least. But maybe a case of, Gardner didn't want to fight Kostecki early on and knew he couldn't afford to fight Kostecki once they caught up to him. But maybe he's just got a tiny bit left here in the tank for one last go at it. But they're about equidistant into 10A, 10B, so might have to come down to something spectacular, or more likely minor mistake from the two in front. But as they come down the hill to turn 12, Barney has the white flag in hand as your top three race by him there to get the final lap of race number 1 underway here at least. I do have the traffic of James Chastaneff in the 427, although Chasty would rather stay on the lead lap, I dare wager. So we'll see here if that's the play, or if Reese will be willing to step aside somewhere convenient for these three at least.
Yeah, they're catching him at a rate of knots, aren't they? Coming out of turn 5 will be one of the deciding points, and Shasti will see them by this point. He elects not to pull over, though. And I think Brody Kostecki will actually be okay with that, because it's a little bit of an extra slipstream he'll get to try and defend against James Scott, who is on a massive attack here on board with the Synergy 088 out of turn 7. It seems like Kostecki has gotten a slightly better run out of the corner. Traction was with him, and now the slipstream is too, but Kostecki is already signaling to James Chastaneuf that he would like to make a move. Chasty does lift off and let our top 3 go. It doesn't look like they're close enough to really put a move on him. So, in the end, out of the final corner will come Brody Kostecki. Car 696, a V8 SCOPS race winner. Once more for Brody Kostecki. He will take it. And the first race at Road Atlanta with James Scott and Griffin Gardner completing the podium. Andrew Gilliam a distant 4th. Oh, hello. Rayan Leonage fancying a look at Brenton Hobson, but he goes off the track. Easy does it. Loses the position ultimately to Dylan O'Shea, who fancies a look at Hobson himself into the final corner. But the space is not there.
Oh boy, that gets a little heated there indeed. Leonage took the spot off Hobson actually on his way down the straight. Unfortunately for Leonage, though, not able to get the spot back under brakes at 10A and 10B, and Dry makes a small error in the process. They will have to settle for, he'll have to settle for 11th place, which is at least where he started this one, but I'm sure he was hoping for +1 or 2 at least on his sign. As that's Zach Vlasbaum in deep. He gets up, trying to cover off the inside from Blake Delaney. Michael Whiting's going to get a shot around the outside of 12. They are all kinds of squirming. And as a result, Vlasbaum holds on. It's Whiting who will get the spot up on Delaney, with Zach McDonald close but not able to capitalise there. And I believe that is just about everyone on the lead lap. So we should be able to bring up race 1 results here in a couple of seconds' time here, Race.
Yep, well, at the end of it, 7/10 was the gap. Brody Kostecki takes victory over James Scott, and Griffin Gardner comes home in 3rd after starting P1. Andrew Gilliam losing a spot in 4th spot there, with Ian Ford gaining 4 up into 5th. Excellent result there for the 115. Taliancic 6th with McNamara in 7th. Luke Rosella makes up 5 spots to finish in 8th place. Brenton Hobson yielding that position to him in the final few laps. O'Shea gets into the top 10 after starting 27th. Huge gains there.
He is the biggest mover of the race. And in contrast, as I said, no spots gained or lost for Rayhan Leonage, mind you, for the 79th, so he'll hang on to that 11th place spot once again. Sebastian Flock up 4 spots into 12th. 5 spots gained for Warboys there to finish in 13th. 3 spots gained for Ben Morris. Gets himself up from outside the top from 17th, sorry, up to 14th. From outside the top 20, Dylan Pereira will bring it home here in 15th place, with Thomas Freeman unfortunately dropping a spot there. One of our first drivers to do so, apart from the drivers towards the front there, at 16th. Up 8 spots for Justin Wallace to 17th. Robbie Gibbs drive the penalty, costly, puts him back in 18th. Start race 2. 19th will be where Thomas Hinz finishes this one, which is a solid +9 gain, and +14 for Ken Ladder to round out the top 20.
21st went to Daniel Hall. That's a 9-position gain for him. Nice to see. Teo Sorono unfortunately losing spots to 22nd. Another big gain for Scott Gamble. That's 16 positions gained to 23rd. Philip Kraus had a very adventurous race, but ended up finishing exactly where he started in 24th, with Jamie Stovall up 1 to 25th. Jacob O'Reilly, well, he got a penalty for turning Corey Preston around, and he would have been hoping for better from that one. 26th for him. Brett Loxton gaining to 27th. Seth Brown losing to 28th. More big gains for David Kirby, our Split 2 winner. He gets into the top 30 after starting 37th, and it's rounded out by Zach Vlasblom, who took those last couple of places on the final lap.
He was busy all the way to the flag. 4 spots gained for Michael Whiting as a result. Still 9 spots gained for Blake Delaney, given he was our lowest place qualifier in this one to start things off. Zach McDonald, one of 2 drivers, I think, in this field. Yes, it looks like it's only one of 2 drivers in this field to finish where he started in 33rd place. Unfortunately, Adam Blocker drops a couple of spots there to 34th, as does Damian Johnson. That's a bit of a hefty loss there for him, unfortunately, down 14 places to 35th. And mind you, though, still finishing on the lead lap. James Chasser, we saw there, gets lapped at the end, brings it home in 36th. David Coleman, up and down for him, will end up in 37th. Corey Preston, unfortunately, not quite our biggest loser, sorry. It was definitely some big struggles, but and ends up in 38th as a result. Craig Schultz, 2 laps down, also bit in the wars tonight. Our last driver to, I believe, finish the race at least there, with 2 complete retirements in the form of Ewan Baker, who, after his displeasure at getting a drive-through penalty for the incident during the race there, and Cameron Jones, mechanical black flag, sees him retire from that race very early on. Well, with that all said and done, Reese, we'll take a short break here on SimSpeed TV, and we'll be back in a couple of minutes before we get ready to go again for race 2 of Split 1 here for V8SCOPS at Road Atlanta. Stay with us.
You're watching SimSpeed TV. This is round 7 of the V8SCOPS series for 2023. Well, Road Atlanta has certainly turned it up tonight so far, but we still have one more race to go at this brilliant American circuit. We're at the end of that 10-minute warm-up between our two races for Split 1 action tonight. We get to do it all over again with the field set by the finishing order of race 1. Once again, I am Reese Gardner, and it's Stan Yeaman alongside me in the commentary box with Jay Kennedy handling production behind the scenes. It's time, Dan. We'll see whether Brody Kostecki will be able to make it 2 from 2 tonight, or if Griffin Gardner will be able to come back and make good on his pole position.
Yeah, who knows exactly? I mean, we're seeing the fact that it's still mid-afternoon. Track temperatures are still going to be hot. But, yeah, it's going to be an interesting case of who makes it work here in another 30-lap race. We take the grid, or the results from race 1, to set the grid for race 2. So, indeed, it will be Brody Kostecki and James Scott to make up our front row to get this one underway. Griffin Gardner and Andrew Gilliam will share that second row. So if Gilliam might have a little bit more in him after fading away over the course of that race there, Reese. Ian Ford will start this one out of 5th. Got Mike Taliantich alongside him there in the 777 for 6th. Sean McNamara after that scrap and then losing out with a little bit of contact. We'll have to start this one in 7th. It's got Luke Rosella up alongside him for 8th place. Top 10 rounded out by Brenton Hobson and Dylan O'Shea. Now with O'Shea, where he probably feels like he should be, can he maintain that rhythm and pace and get a few more spots? We'll have to wait and see. Row 6, going to round things out here with Rehan Leonage and Sebastian Flock before we move into the next part of the field.
Blake Warboys starts alongside Ben Morris, and behind them we've got Dylan Pereira and Thomas Freeman. Justin Wallace making up a good amount of spots in the first race. He's going to start alongside Robert Gibbs, who has a bit more to gain from this. Thomas Hins and Ken Latta behind them to round out the top 20. Daniel Hall will start alongside Teo Sorono with Scott Gamble and Philip Kraus, 23rd and 24th.
Final third or thereabouts of the field is going to start with Jeremy Stovold in 25th, Jacob O'Reilly alongside in 26th position. The 14th row sees Brett Loxton and Seth Brown starting alongside each other. Top 30 rounded out by David Kirby and Zach Glassbaum for Fishy Motorsports and Alpha Venturi Racing. All Fishy Motorsports cars between the hands of Michael Whining and Blake Delaney, 31st and 32nd for them. Zach McDonald and Adam Blocker are going to start this one out of 33rd and 34th. Let's get to our final couple of cars, Damian Johnson and James Chastaneff. David Coleman just in behind them, 37th. Corey Preston looking to try and respond, you'd think, here in this one for 38th. Craig Schultz in 39th, I believe, will be second last starter, as I'm not expecting to see. I haven't seen Ewan Baker return back to the server, so that 40th grid spot will be vacant, with Cameron Jones, therefore, our last car back in the 019. 32nd order given by race control. So drivers are reminded to get their engines fired back up and ready to roll as we take a look here once again at the format race. 30 more laps of racing, one compulsory pit stop which needs to be taken between the end of lap 2 and the end of lap 28. So a nice healthy window that we saw, of course, going a little bit longer than halfway seems to be favourable here if you can look after your car in the starting phase. As it's almost time to get this one underway as the revs come back. Let's get this show on the road.
Revs rise, waiting to see who gets the best start here. And we are away. It's a good start from Kostecki and Scott, but Griffin Gardner's second phase sees him fall behind Andrew Gilliam. Ian Ford trying around the outside of turn 1 for the second time tonight. Michael Taliantich sitting pretty there, just ahead of Hobson and McNamara, but Kostecki with a pretty dominant lead through turn 3. Not much anyone can do to overcome him here. Gardner falling back 1 position, and Andrew Gilliam right on the back of James Scott for second now. This could be a very different top three to what we saw in the first race, as there's a lot of jostling in the mid-pack coming through turn 5. Does anyone go for a spin across this curb is the big question. 3 wide between Seth Brown, Philip Kraus and Jamie Stovall. They end up working themselves out into 2x2 running and are trying up the inside Michael Whiting to try and get past the number 57 of Zach Vlasblom. A lot of very close running in the middle of this field, but miraculously, it seems the vast majority of them have gotten through it.
I haven't seen anyone call out to race control, no significant contact, no one off the road. So, made it halfway at least round this opening lap as we come into 10A, 10B. Heads full of steam on this opening lap. Mostly single file in the front half of the field. It's a little bit more exciting in the back half, but we have gotten through for now. Thomas Freeman on the radio in the number 6 machine, and that might be a case of something not quite going to plan there. So we'll figure out what's happened back towards the back of the field here real quick as we stay up with your front drivers. 201 of Andrew Gillian, as I said, up into third place. It looks like Robbie Gibbs has potentially got the entangle. I'll just have a quick look at it here before seeing if it's worth a replay. As Thomas Hiens off the road.
Oh, goodness. Hinsey trying his best to hold on here versus the number 13 of Justin Wallace, and off the track goes Scott Gamble. What a massive improvement it was for him in race 1 from his starting position, but he has fallen right to the back of the pack now. It's a huge shame for Scotty, with Damian Johnstone now down in 40th place, gets up into 39th, passing Scott Gamble, but it's on for the lead now. James Scott is in the slipstream of Brody Kostecki. Will he go for the move? The bump draft is on. He pulls out. Will he actually make the pass? No, he decides to not go for it. Interesting stuff there, but the field's still very close together. He's going to have to be careful about how he executes that.
Hobson deep there as we have this nice little drone shot. That means he's under pressure from McNamara. Hiens under pressure there from Justin Wallace, who's going to go around the outside. Got Philip Kraus back there with Dan Hall. As here's this footage here, as you see McNamara getting past Hobson, and the door open for Dylan O'Shea to work his way through as well. So unfortunately for the 88, down to 9th place as a result, as the fastest lap of everyone that time around. Ian Ford not lifting out of the throttle there, it seems, which keeps him that purple lap for the time being, and up to, well, in 5th place, I should say, so far in this one. Is Hiens and Ladder now scrapping up through 2 and 3. We just avoid anything more significant than some panel rubbing. It is definitely busy here. And it's amongst the mid-pack. I'm going to go to a quick replay here of what happened to Scott Gamble. So you've got Teo Sorono in front, Brett Loxton in behind. Checked up a little bit for Sorono there, I think, through turn 2, but then come off down the curve. Oh, check out his Ladder, Hiens and co. And then Loxton, and gets the left rear into the concrete, and the right rear is going to get the concrete too at a slightly slower pace. That has...
Oh, there's a big crash coming out of turn 7. We got a few cars involved in a pile up on the side of the track. Hall, Stovall and Loxton. Oh, this might be a safety car here. Jamie Stovall's car is destroyed. The engine is not running. Well, actually, he has been able to get it moving, so we might actually not see a safety car after all. Goodness me. That was one heck of an incident. Pretty big crash, and I can tell you that it was a bit of a coming together with Stovall and Loxton. Very unfortunate in that Daniel Hall tried to make his way through on those guys, but the racing's still happening here with Sean McNamara trying to hold off Robbie Gibbs, and successful so far. So here's what happened then. Big bit of racing here between Philip Kraus and Brett Loxton, but then Daniel Hall tries to make it 3 wide and turns Stovall around. I mean, there wasn't much that Loxton or Stovall could have done from that point on.
No, that's a 3-1 doesn't go kind of situation, unfortunately, there. As we get back to live pictures on the front of the field, as your top 5 have, sorry, 6 apologies. Top 6 have stuck together for the time being. Scott close once again, but I think he's just happy to sit here. Well, clearly happy to sit here, because he otherwise would have gone for a move if he wanted the race lead. As see drivers work their way down the field. As a redress order is coming in over the radio from race control. Robbie Gibbs have to give up a spot to the number 6 of Thomas Freeman due to contact down there at 10A, 10B on lap 1. So Dylan Pereira has just lost that spot to Gibbs. we'll have to get through somewhere as Gibbs is trying to get a spot to let this all go, I think. Let's just check up Pereira for a second. Oh, here we go. Freeman trying to take advantage. He's not going to be able to get alongside Pereira for turn 1, though.
Well, immediately Gibbs gets back by, and it gets even worse. Oh, all right, America, indeed. Let's see then. Let's see then how that works out between the two of them. Gibbs has gotten back by Freeman with a little bit more contact right after the redress was made. Is that going to have an effect on Race Control's future decisions here, as Freeman is showing his displeasure?
Yeah, a quick back look at that one there again, just see what I make of that. I mean, door was open on the exit of turn 1. And to me, Freeman's come across on Gibbs. So from the angle I'm looking at in particular, you're watching up the hill.
Yeah.
Gibbs isn't going as much across to the left as it looks like Freeman's going across to the right. So to be honest, I don't really see what Freeman's got there that he can argue about. He's put himself in that position as Gibbs back live pitches up the inside of Pereira, who wants nothing to do with this, I think, at this point. If they've already had one redress, he's now stuck in the middle of it again, though, hoping that things don't go his way as Thomas Hinz and Jacob O'Reilly are exchanging places behind this bunch. Then you've got Lewis Kraus, Vlasbom, Whiting. Delaney might be in this one here as well. Yeah, he is almost.
This pack is massive. Have a look at them. Look at them all. That's insane. Oh, okay. Bit of a defensive line trying to go on here. Zach Vlasblom, but trying up the inside is Michael Whiting. Actually gives Vlasblom a tap just behind these lead cars at the front of the pack. 14 cars involved in the battle for 22nd, and it's going to be 12 now. Off the track goes Jones and Preston.
Oh, dear. I saw the green 9.5 car. Oh, O'Reilly's in the weeds halfway down the exit as well. And, right, well, that's going to need a replay to dissect how that's all happened there, unfortunately, because that's gotten just a wee bit busy indeed. Meanwhile, at the front of the field, briefly, a bit more of a gap between Kostecki and Scott, and Gardner is now on the bumper of Gilliam a little bit more as McNamara and O'Shea trade places down into 10A, 10B. So far, so good. So let's have a look at this here. So Jones in the middle of all of this.
Oh, Preston's getting a bit too hot.
Just a little bit there. And then up ahead, Kraus and O'Reilly halfway down the S's. They tag, and O'Reilly's car, the one that ends up sideways more so. So yeah, unfortunately. Oh, and then still going with it. Still going with the remainders of the group here. So we've now got that's Chastaneff, McDonald, Delaney, Kirby, Schultz, and Coleman, all trying to sort this one out here. So, and try and catch up to up there would be Kraus, Vlasbom, Whiting, and Blocker ahead of them as a group of four still.
Okay, well, things have calmed down just a tiny bit. Tension's still very high, especially up the front, because this is a bit more of a lead pack than we saw at this stage last race. Kostecki and Scott aren't in much trouble of being passed, but Griffin Gardner there, right on the back of Andrew Gilliam. Not going for the move this time, though. I think they recognise at this point of the race, drivers are starting to think about whether or not they're deciding to pit early. And I mean, I don't think there's much of a possibility of it, though, because remember, in the previous races, I just saw Gardner briefly go off the track. We saw the leaders take their first pit stops at lap 15, round about the halfway point of the race. I think they're just biding their time at the moment. They don't want to make the big moves and cost each other time, potentially lose touch with the cars ahead, so there won't be an advantage to be gained when they come into the pits.
Yeah, they're all close enough that they'd rather, I think, yeah, everyone is going to be plenty happy to just keep riding in each other's coattails, especially for the guys like Gilliam and Gardner, who are a little space back from your top two. Do everything they can to keep that gap as unaffected as possible, and also make sure that they're not taking anything extra out of the tyre as we watch the field swing by turn 6. There's Serrano, we're back to 21st place with Seth Okay, we've got a couple of cars in the middle of this that are already down a lap, unfortunately. There. So Delaney there is 29th. In this one, unfortunately. Damien Johnston, 33rd for a moment there as we finish flicking through the field. For now, back to the front. And once again, Reese, Andrew Gilliam is not looking strong over the course of a longer run. We're only talking 8 laps so far in this one here, but already the gap back to it's about a tenth or two bigger than the gap between Kostecki and Scott, but it just appears that much larger, even though we're talking maybe a car length at most. But it really does give off the impression that Gilliam doesn't have race pace for our top two, at least here at Road Atlanta tonight.
Yeah, I mean, ever since the drop of the green flag in race 1, it's looked like Kostecki and Scott have been the ones to really pile on the aggression and go for it in regards to the lead. Griffin Gardner, though, still a bit of an outlier. Remember, he took pole position for race 1, and he attempted to get the brief track position gain by undercutting Scott and Kostecki. Will he try and do the opposite this time around? Maybe an inversion of strategy will result in an inversion in fortune. We'll have to wait and see on that front. We have seen a couple of drivers take their first scheduled pit stops in the last lap or two. David Kirby a lap ago taking a scheduled stop. Blake Delaney following him in on this lap. So keep an eye out for whether or not we see more drivers start to follow them in. Looking back here at Robbie Gibbs, he's getting chased here by Ben Morris.
Chased him down, actually, Reese.
Yeah, made the pass. That's an extra position up for Robert Gibbs, who's had a pretty tough night here for being a championship leader. And wow, that was a big dive.
Big dive, but got it pulled up. I think Morris also willing to be a bit cooperative there as well, helps a little bit there. Thomas Freeman going to join actually two out of three fishy motorsport teams, because apparently word salad is hard today. I have to say, I'm not sure I like this from the fishy motorsport guys. Yes, they're towards the back half of the field, but I don't see how pitting this early is going to get them any benefit. Clean air's nice and all, but then you're going to have a tyre that's got nothing left in it. As we look at the front half of the field, your top 6 now still roughly together, but very much in pairs as they work their way around the circuit. James Scott a little bit closer than he has been the past lap or two, I'd say. Meanwhile, Gilliam, he's really hanging everything out there through the final corner in particular. Got that left rear up and a little bit over the curb on his way down the start-finish straight. Gardner still happy to hold position, though, it seems. So not hurting 93's race plan and pace that much, despite losing about half a second or so gradually.
Well, we've got one of our first race control penalties of the race here. Looks to me like Daniel Hall has been given a black flag for that contact on lap 3 that resulted in Brett Loxton and Jamie Stovall getting put into the wall. So we'll see that ERT Mustang make a trip through the pit lane without stopping very shortly, and now wait with bated breath to see who pulls the trigger first in this top group. Sebastian Flock versus Blake Warboys for position here. Flock with the run, getting alongside down the back stretch. This is a fight a little bit further down in the field, just behind Luke Rosella. 12th place gain for Seb Flock. And this is why Blake Warboys, with an error it seems, just caught the grass on the way into turn 7. Luke Rosella avoided that beautifully, and then Sebastian Flock decided, okay, I'm going to take advantage of this.
Yeah, he sure did. And as a result, it's actually position regained, because Seb had a moment of his own down in the S's somewhere that saw him lose 12th to Luke Rosella. And now, whilst it's shuffled up, it's back the way it was. All right, less than 3/10 now between Kostecki and Scott, or there or thereabouts, as the gap will fluctuate in and out of the turns here. So coming up towards the pit window. I'd say the earliest you think about pitting is the end of lap 14, given the strength of the overcut, it seems, amongst this bunch today. The question is who's going to be the one to pull the trigger? Is anyone in this top 6 going to pull the trigger? And unfortunately, I can see that Cameron Jones has joined the YouTube chat race rather than join the racetrack. Unfortunately, it's been a horrish night for him and not able to get the 01995 SimSports Commodore repaired after the incident now a couple of laps ago, turns 2 and 3. So commiserations, Cameron. Hopefully better luck next time when V8SCOPS is back on the road.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Cameron has certainly had some good results in the past, and I'm sure that there will be more to come. But we keep our eye on this pack, headed up by the 57 of Zach Vlasblom. He's got Michael Whiting in tow, as well as Adam Blocker, part of the America's Down Under squad. And, oh, there we go. Actually, speaking of Michael Whiting, into the pits he comes at the end of the 12th lap of the race. Interesting call there. Maybe a tad early. We'll see how that works out for Mr. Whiting, as Vlasblom tries his best to hold off Adam Blocker and the pursuing James Chastaneuf. They got Zach McDonald and Jacob O'Reilly in there as well. Both two drivers looking to make some gains here after race 1 didn't quite go their way. This is looking rather fun to watch at the moment.
Yep, the action is certainly alive here, even if they are fighting over 23rd on back here in this one. Although it looks like it really is going to be between Blocker and Chastaneuf first, I would think, unless Vlasblom makes an error, which he might have done a little bit, although Blocker just has the better run, I think, off of turn 7, which puts these 3 at the front of the group, a bit more equal, whereas Chassis was right up underneath Blocker's rear wing heading into turn 7. Vlasblom far enough ahead to not get past, so go through, although Blocker's strong off of turn 10B, but over the hill at turn 11. Vlasblom carrying on ahead there down to turn 12, so they're staying as they are now. Lap 14, I'd say we're just about at the margin where you could pit. Dylan Pereira, I think, still 1 lap early, but we'll give it a shot here with an undercut in that number 61 Phoenix Racing Team entry. Meanwhile, here's your top 4. Make it top 6, they're still in shot as race control message comes through. Corey Preston has been penalised with a drive-through for making contact with Cameron Jones back on lap number 6. So Preston currently a lap down, will fall to the last position of those cars still circulating, which will be 38th. Any takers? No surprises there. The top 4 at least will carry on. Make it top 6 race. No one going to pull the trigger just yet from our front runners, it seems.
Yes. Rosella continuing to jet away here, and it seems that Blake Warboys has struggled to get back past Sebastian Flock since his era. I think he might have burned through the last remaining reserves of those tyres when he had that big slide. Here comes Kenneth Ladder into the pits for Synergy Sim Racing, and that's from about 19th spot. See how far he ends up getting from this one, as, oh goodness, Vlasblom following him in. That was almost disastrous for him, and potentially the cars behind as well. Chastaneuf actually getting past McDonald at some point there. No, my apologies, I completely got that crossed up. Chastaneuf was already ahead of McDonald. I will have to give myself a good slap in the face after this broadcast is done, but not before we get to the end of this. We are about to reach the proper halfway mark of this race, and we're waiting on our leaders to come into the lane. Vlasblom with a big helping of oversteer on the way into the pits. Meanwhile, out of 10A and 10B they come. And, well, all of our top 4 avoided. Griffin Gardner is staying with the leaders for now. He's deciding not to do anything different.
And, yeah, I think this is kind of the play that I would agree to. You're close enough that an undercut might work here, but probably better off just maintaining equal strategy at this point. For Rehan Leonage, Ben Morris, Justin Wallace, however, they will come to the lane here and split this race evenly in two. Seth Brown and Thomas Hintz make that 5 on the lane here at the end of lap 15. Freeman, once again, the leader of those who have pitted in this race so far, in 25th position at the moment. And he'll go by some of them now, but here comes Leonage, will become the first person out of the pits, and just gets ahead of David Cole, and critically for him, that gives clean air to put his pace down, try and catch up to the cars he was racing early on in that one. As still, Gilliam leads Gardner for third. Scott, though, has dropped off the back a little bit of Brody Kostecki in comparison, not putting as much pressure on the 696. Gardner will blink first, though, for the pit lane.
Oh, all right. So that's at the end of lap 16. Gardner has gone a lap longer this time than he did in race 1.
And it looks like, yeah, McNamara, so 9.5 going to commit to a 16-lap run in this opening stint. Well, not all, Dylan O'Shea has committed onwards. Can this one-lap undercut pay dividends for Griffin Gardner? And will it be, well, it needs to be enough, simultaneously enough of an undercut to get him a benefit, but also not too much of an undercut that it hurts him come the end of the race. Teo Sorono, Philip Kraus will follow him down as we check back in with now your top 3 in this race. They have well and truly dropped Mike Teliancic and Ian Ford to a race of their own. As Ford just picks up in the background a shot. Okay, good pit stop for Gardner on 10 seconds, and plenty of clean track here for this out lap to be at peak potential. We'll see what he does here, and keep an eye on, is there a response coming from our top 2 here?
And how long will that response take? So Kostecki is going in. James Scott follows him in. Andrew Gilliam as well. Okay. Oh, Kostecki locking up on the way into the pits there. Looks like they'll be followed in by the ERT Commodore of Ian Ford plus Dylan O'Shea as well. Looks like assuming the race lead from here will be Michael Taliancic once more. He managed to make the incredibly long first run work for him in the first race. Let's see if it works out for him this time. The synergy pair of Hobson and Rosella staying out too, as well as Seb Flock and Robert Gibbs. So Griffin Gardner comes through the final corner, and Kostecki and Scott are off the jacks. This is going to be close.
Got the undercut. Gardner's got them, I think.
Not by much.
Oh, and she's going to... No, Kostecki hangs on to it.
Only just.
Well, slots in.
That was pushing the limits, but completely legal, in my opinion.
Well, I thought for a second, I was like, oh, he's got him. No, it turns out Gardner was a little bit further back, and I thought, now, does he press on here and take the lead, effective lead off of Kostecki, or does he reset, stay in behind, and now start trying to work over the 696? Here, we'll have to see, because he's made up 2 places now by doing this and taking that early pit stop. Gilliam has closed up the margin, and a very nice pit entry, it seems, which has got him some time. Although in saying that, the stationary pit time, I think, really helped Gilliam. I'm seeing 8.5 on the jacks as, trouble for Dan Hall on the S's, but we'll watch this here for a second as James Scott looking for the spot back off of Gardner at 10A, 10B, side by side. He will take it around the outside, and Gilliam's going to get an opening to go up the inside as well, which unfortunately has undone the work that Griffin Gardner has put in via the undercut here.
Yeah, that's just hard racing there. Gardner might still have a chance here. Inside of turn 1 is protected by Gilliam, and potential for a crisscross here as Griffin gets the exit off of turn 1 through turn 2. It looks like Gilliam has the advantage and will keep the position through turn 3.
Oh, Michael Taliancic, big loser in the pit cycle. He's lost spots to Dylan O'Shea, and he's got Sean McNamara for company as well. Plus, you've got Rehan Leonage with the early stop. So I have to see if this can be turned around for Tally. Otherwise, Ian Ford has been given a free holiday checking up the road ahead. Coming into that one lap earlier in this race, we're going to have Hobson and Rosella, our last two cars to pit. Have a look there at the stationary times. Now, there is a little bit of just variance in the pit stop times. It looks like with Andrew Gilling through in race 2, we're really on the money today here, Reece.
Yeah, there's usually we see tyres taking about 10 seconds, but there is some variance in pit stop times regarding how good you are at actually pulling up in the box and hitting the jacks properly. Oh, Gibbs versus Freeman. Here we go. And it looks like Gibbs will protect that position from Freeman just for the moment as James Scott goes fastest. 119.8 there from Mr. Scott as he continues to try and chase down Brody Kostecki. But looks like the gap has extended a bit here. And at this point, I'm not surprised if it's Kostecki's race to lose.
It does look like it, yeah. Gap up to nearly a second between Kostecki and Scott, and same between Scott and Gilliam. They've fanned out a bit here. It's definitely the feel of the race at this stage. And it's going to have to take something big, I feel, from Scott. That, or more simply speaking, an error, which we haven't seen yet from Kostecki tonight. So to change things up there. So that seems to be the play at the moment as they'll try half an effort to shake the draft there. But that's not happening as Hobson and Rosella will bring their two cars down the lane. So they'll just do a 10-lap run on their final set of tyres. See if that helps them out in the dying stages of the race. They were back in and around just over the top 10 or thereabouts. We've also got David Coleman yet to come to pits, which is why he's up in 12th place at the moment. So unfortunately for the 640 machine, see him down as that's Ian Ford in the background having a big old error, I think. Yep, down the front stretch there. Still got some margin back to Dylan O'Shea, but can't afford to let it all be eaten up through unforced errors.
Indeed. Well, that's interesting. It looks like Luke Rosella and Brenton Hobson were together when they were going past everyone who pitted ahead of them, but Rosella seems to have lost a lot of time somewhere as we check out Ian Ford. Really going beyond the track limits there at the exit of the final corner. Shows you just how hard every driver out there is pushing. But yeah, looks like problem for Luke Rosella.
Hang on.
That is a long lane time for Luke Rosella.
He's overshot his pit box slightly, and then it's not gotten up on the jacks for a good while there. Oh, he's overshot it, and then he didn't get it back just enough, so he waited, and it still wasn't in the right place. So the Rosella, yeah, lost 15 seconds getting the car in the right position.
That's race ruined for Luke Rosella with a slight blunder in the pit cycle. But Brenton Hobson has completed his stop nicely and has gone back up into 10th. Meanwhile, Sebastian Flock versus Blake Warboys. These guys have been keeping each other very good company here in race 2. That's Flock getting past Warboys once again with an excellent slipstream by on the into the back stretch into 10A and 10B, and stays ahead of Warboys for the time being with 9 laps to go in this race.
And yeah, Brenton Hobson holds down the spot in the top 10, but he is about 2.8 seconds ahead, so that would be quite the effort to catch up to him, especially given that Hollows on some of the freshest tyres in the field. All right, pit stop's basically complete. The exception is Jamie Stovold, and unfortunately for him, he's way back down in 35th place, so that's going to put him a lap down by the time that happens, I do think. Yeah, it would. Definitely that's the case because he's going through turn 1 as our leaders here climb 10A, 10B once more. And Brody Kostecki, yeah, just not looking challenged at this point in the race, although this time round Griffin Gardner's not really the one applying the pressure. I have to say Andrew Gilliam is holding on a little bit better than the opening stint at least, though yet to see if that's going to change or be something he can convert in the final couple of laps here. It has cooled off, I might add, though. Oh, it did cool off. It's come back up. I'll take that back. It's approaching 245 virtual time. I did see as low as 48 degrees Celsius for track temperature. It's back to 50 degrees.
Yeah, it is sweltering conditions out there if you are on the tarmac, but it's still a nice 26 degrees Celsius air temperature. Have a look at this, though. Luke Rosella up with Kenneth Latta here. Synergy teammates trying to work out where they stand here. Of course, Rosella would have a good argument that he needs to fight for a position in the top 10, and he'll try and gain those positions back, but there's no team orders at Synergy Sim Racing. Kenneth Latta is just running his own race at the moment. He is chasing down Dylan Pereira for 16th spot.
Yeah. Close little battle pack here, mind you, starting with Pereira. Looking back to Justin Wallace is at the rear of the group in 19th. Here comes Rosella, though, on Latta for 17th position. Down the straightaway they go. Rosella, though, I guess they're under brakes. Ahead of Latta now for the turn in, and yeah, able to just slide on up the inside. Not too much of a drama, which is what you'd hope for, given that they're both out of the Synergy Sim Racing stable. And now Rosella got a chance at Pereira coming up. There's Wallace in the background there, just a little wide. The same in the background again for Sorono there as well. Checking in with Thomas Freeman here for a second, who's actually just up the road. Oh, sorry, just behind. Where is he? Yeah, just up the road from that group we were talking about, sorry. Got Ben Morris just behind him by about a second. Now, those two currently fairly close on lap time, apparently, but apparently there's something to see on the replay coming up here in a second race. Oh, no.
No, yeah, have a look at that. The difference in tyre age. Yeah, Ben Morris rapidly chasing down Thomas Freeman here. Quite a bit of time lost, potentially. But having said that, Freeman running a 21.38 on the last lap versus a 21.52 for Morris. So maybe Ben is just trying to stretch it out a little bit, as here comes Luke Rosella on his way past Dylan Pereira, and Kenneth Latta's going to try and follow him through here, but just enough room given for Pereira to fight the position through 10B. Excellent job from both drivers there, but it has given a free kick to Justin Wallace to try and stick his nose in this.
Yeah, but Wallace not as strong through turn 12. It would seem Latta's going to go again for turn 1, but Pereira shuts the door across the front of the 269 before Latta can get there for that manoeuvre. So then ride the crest through turns 2 and 3. Fishy teammates. Oh, David Coleman's in the wall across the start-finish line. And that's a hefty whack against concrete. He should be all right to get that car back around, but he's hit the wall a couple of times, actually, all the way down the front straight for that one here. And this is rather rough, because David Kirby up the inside of him here, and plenty of space given, Reese. It's you can see he's struggling, though, for grip, but just offline enough in the marbles, I bet you. And oh,
goodness me. Yeah, no surprise to see that that's given David Coleman a mechanical black flag. So he's just staying off track and crawling around trying to get that thing back to the pits.
He's currently in the S's, which is where our leaders are approaching in the not-too-distant future. I think he's got a bit of steering left in it, but he actually will just go for a full-on cut of the course, which would be a hefty time penalty for what matter. Oh, hang on, he's pulled over and requested a tow here.
Okay, but I think we'll stay green here, because that is way off any kind of racing surface used in this event. So race control should approve that, and looks like he might have just been given that approval.
Yep, permission granted, and indeed, thoughtful driving from David Coleman to get the car way off track, so yeah, no issues going to be there. But unfortunately, that will be his race done on lap number 20. It was the start of lap 25, unfortunately, for him there. As the rest of the field is on lap 26, pretty much barring those Still circulating. Jamie Stovall yet to pit still for tyres. Interesting play from the 987 because, unfortunately for Jamie, he's way on his own. But we'll talk about stuff like that another time because Ladder's turn to try and eye up Dylan Pereira's 17th position. And it's also bringing Serono, Brown, and Kraus into the pictures. Oh, smoking motor. Who is that?
Oh, dear.
No, who was that up there?
It's Robert Gibbs.
Oh,
Robert Gibbs coming into the pit lane with a smoking engine. I think that might have been a downshift.
Where's that?
Yeah, actually, it was right at the top of the rev range here, coming into the braking's over 10A and 10B. So I think maybe the engine temperature just got too high.
Yeah, I'm just having a look at it myself. Yeah, it is. It happens just before he's going to shift. So yeah, obviously hasn't been. The car is in pretty good nick, despite he has had obviously a little bit of scuffs and scrapes this one. But yeah, you watch here, smoke plumes just before he hits the brakes, and as you called it there, Reese, when he's on the rev limiter in 6th. So unfortunately, a little bit of damage, perhaps, plus the driving style chosen today has cost the driver of the number 2 here in race 2 in particular. Trouble for Michael Whiting of some kind apparently out on track. I'll have a quick look at it here. No, just going really slow to allow cars by. Unfortunately for Michael, he's on a lap down at this point. So that's all. False alarm. We carry on. Speaking of carrying on, Reese, Rory Kostecki gets to etch out a margin, but Andrew Gilliam's keeping the gap to the leader overall pretty similar. James Scott fading, it would seem, at this point.
Yeah, the gap hasn't closed between P1 and P2, sitting at about 1.3 seconds. But yeah, I can see that Andrew Gilliam was the fastest car on track last time around. We look back a little further here at, oh, goodness me, Michael Whiting having to make room for Ben Morris there, and Morris nabbing himself a slowdown as a result of that mistake, letting Michael Whiting right back by. But, yeah, pace for Andrew Gilliam is looking very good right now. He's leaving Griffin Gardner behind and closing up to James Scott. What are the times this time around? Well, that's a good response from Brody Kostecki. 1 minute 20.496, putt of 120.495 for Andrew Gilliam. That is a really excellent response. Compare that to the 120.6 that James Scott just set, and it looks like P2 might be in trouble.
Yeah, I mean, unless this is James Scott just willing or able to, and that conserve a little bit of tyre to then be able to go on somewhat, well, quote-unquote, an attack, which is to say just push a little bit harder on the final lap and not worry. Yeah, Gilliam might have just found something. Moment for Brenton Hobson up behind Rehan Leonage. Oh, dear, Hobbo.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Keep it off the wall. He keeps it off the wall. That explains why Sebastian Flock and Blake Warboys are now looking at P10 and licking their chops, hoping that they are going to get a chance at getting themselves 1 or 2 more spots, depending on who you ask, as your leaders head down the back stretch for the second last time. And Griffin Gardner, looks like unfortunately it's his turn to not have a response for the drivers in front of him as they come off of the 10A, 10B chicane once more. They've got to navigate it one final time for Brody Kostecki. 1.2 seconds by the standards of the field here so far today. That is a healthy margin race as he rounds turn 1 for the final time.
Yeah, it's been dominance from Brody Kostecki. He's shown up, stayed out of trouble, and driven well. Just a fantastic job indeed, but we won't speak of that too soon lest we give him the old commentator's curse. It is still on for second, though. Andrew Gilliam still rounding up James Scott here, and there could be a last-ditch attempt at a pass for second into 10A if this kind of pace is anything to go by. Once more, Gilliam taking almost a tenth of a second out of James Scott. And here we go then. Big oversteer moment for Griffin Gardner in the background. He is out of the fight for the top 3 at this point. What will Andrew Gilliam be able to do versus James Scott here? Looks like he's not quite close enough to have the dive at 10A and 10B. He is going to have a look, though. Try and psych out James Scott, but it isn't going to work. Scott's as wily a driver as any of them. And how about Wiley? Brody Kostecki started at the front and never looked back. 2 from 2 at Road Atlanta, and he is our round winner in car 696.
And yeah, margins weren't massive, but it looked cruisy. Ford and Ford is going to round the top 5. As the rest of your top 10 will make their way past, and Hobson will just hang on as a wobble from Sebastian Flock kills the run to the line. In behind him, Warboys will also have to settle for 12th place as Seth Brown trying to get past Philip Kraus. Does take the spot momentarily, but unfortunately that's going to be spot back in the hands of the 99 as these drivers work their way across the line. Just rounding out the top 20 there. In fact, place taken by Kraus on that final lap of the race. That's a bit of concrete there for Hinsey in the background for him. We'll do him a solid jolt. And Dan Hall. Nice little bit of style points to finish that one off as the rest of our field makes their way around turn 12. Keeping it on the track mostly to take the checkered flag. Only a couple. In fact, no, that is it. That is everyone across the line now on the lead lap. So I do believe that will allow us to go to the provisional results here for race 2, Reese.
Yep, Kostecki once again, followed by James Scott. 1 and 2 in both races, but a change for 3rd and 4th. Gilliam now finishes ahead of Gardner, with Ian Ford finishing 5th once more as well. Dylan O'Shea making another improvement. That's a further 4 spots gained from his race 1 finish, 6th place at the end. Michael Taliancic in 7th, and McNamara, Leonage and Hobson will round out the top 10.
11th place in race 2 goes to Sebastian Falk, as we saw there, able to hang on ahead of Blake Warboys, but not quite able to get up into that top 10. So 11th and 12th for the 2 drivers there that we just talked about. Thomas Freeman was able to hang on those old tyres in 13th place, and Luke Rosella, to his late error, unfortunately, that sees him back down in 14th, trying to charge back through. Gets ahead of Ben Morris, who will have to finish there in 15th. They had a Pereira in 16th. Ken Latta works his way a couple spots forward to get 17th. Justin Wallace ends up there in 18th place, spot down on where he started race 2. Spots gained though for Teo Serrano, 3 places for him for 19th, and 4 places up for Philip Kraus to finish there in 20th.
Seth Brown making an overall improvement on his night. 23rd to 28th in race 1, 28th to 21st in race 2. James Chastaneuf making an improvement as well to 22nd. Thomas Hinz unfortunately missing out on gaining spots, 23rd for him. 10 places gained for Adam Blocker. Jacob O'Reilly up 1. Damien Johnstone up 9, with Zach McDonald getting into the top 30. Same for Zach Vlasblom staying in the top 30. Craig Schultz gained 10 spots to finish in 29th and ended up ousting David Kirby into 30th place.
Now, final couple of drives, Blake Delaney and Scott Gamble, our last 2 across the line on the lead lap, as we saw there at the end of that one. 2 drivers a lap down. Michael Whiting and Jamie Stovold in the 025 and 987 cars respectively. Blown motor for Robbie Gibbs sees him 4 laps shy, although it's enough laps to still be classified for points. At least same for David Coleman, despite the engine dying on him in P36. Same for Dan Hall, we saw that actually did finish the race despite the damage to his vehicle. Corey Preston retiring after damage and drama for him tonight. Cameron Jones, unfortunately, really couldn't get much worse than that for him. Reese will double retirement in 39th and not classified. Same for Brett Loxton, very early retirement. And our 40th and final starter also retiring from that race. And time to turn to interviews here, it seems, with Ewan Baker over the page there, not starting race 2. But yeah, interviews time, and it looks like we've only got 2 drives to chat to, so I'll grab the man who started, or ended up getting 2s all around, and hand to you, Reese, to have a chat with James Scott here.
Indeed. Welcome to the commentary box, James. A very good round for you, all things considered. Nice and consistent. Second place starts and finishes in both races. You must be satisfied with that.
Yeah, overall pretty good night. Just followed Brody the whole night really. He was pretty quick, so I don't know, just stuck in behind him. He was really good. But yeah, can't be unhappy with two second places.
How did you approach the strategy? Because there were a couple of interesting decisions in the races from other drivers who were fighting around your area. It seemed, though, that going a little bit longer past the halfway point, then grabbing the tyres was the move to make.
Yeah, pretty much. I don't know. I was in conversation with Brody all race, just what we're gonna do. But yeah, it seemed to be just running that little bit longer, those couple of laps. I think the first race was, I don't know, 2 laps or something on Griffin, and then the second race was only 1 lap. But yeah, that just seemed to be the way to go. Obviously didn't want to lose too much time or track position to the guys around us, but just have the freshest tyres as possible.
Well, either way, second place in both races for you, a good haul of points, and we go to Belle Isle for the next round. You must be looking forward to that as much as anyone else. Is really awesome track, that one.
Yeah, I think first street round of the year. Good, it's a pretty good track. It's kind of hard to pass, but I don't know, try and do the passes when the other guy puts it in the wall, but it's a pretty good track. You have to do some practice before that round.
Yeah, definitely will have to. It's a very tough track at Belle Isle. Before we let you go, James, anyone you'd like to thank for your podiums tonight?
Obviously all the guys at SSR. Brody won't be joining us. He's got a mic issue, but he worked really good. The setup was pretty good. So shout out to him and Jared for being there spotting all night. And obviously our sponsors at SSR, Wave Watercraft Performance Centre, Parramatta Isuzu, West End Motor Group, Too Easy Finance, Works Racing Component, Dr. Epoxy, and obviously all you guys that put on the series and the broadcast.
All right, thanks very much, James Scott, for joining us in this commentary box. And I'll hand it over to you, Dan, to have a chat to Andrew Gilliam.
Thanks there, Reese. Well, pretty solid night for you too, Andrew. Starting that first race out in third, and then unfortunately slipping back to fourth there off the race start. But all in all, fairly good. I mean, yeah, fourth and third ties you up with Griffin for round points to be equal third tonight. As a result, I mean, were any parts in particular you sort of felt like you were spotting sort of places perhaps where you had guys like Brody, James, and Griffin, all three of them maybe a little stronger than you it seemed, or in turn places where you were feeling stronger than them?
I just went completely way too aggressive with the race setup in that first one, just chronic understeer. Probably like, I knew I was in trouble maybe 3 laps into the first stint. I'm like, oh man, I can't even get the apex onto the back straight. So I kind of just fought with the car, tried the bars and the brake bias as much as possible. But yeah, huge shout out to Mike sending me a few magic clicks. And I think we were probably the fastest race car in the second half of that race. So huge turnaround.
Without a doubt, yeah. Unfortunately, we did see in race 1, you looked like you were pushing hard, but yeah, it wasn't converting to pure pace. But absolutely, in race 2 there, biding your time there, it seemed a little bit, as you said, setup changes there for race 2 really helped, and it definitely looked like it there. You're starting to close back in on James. Unfortunately, just needed a couple laps more, it seemed, to have a proper go at P2 there.
Yeah, he started losing that draft from Brody, and I thought, oh, this could be on, but I just ran out of laps.
I mean, all in all, you four at the front of the field tonight, definitely it was a matter of hundredths we're talking about tonight to separate you guys when it came down to 1 lap pace. And of course, 1 lap pace is one thing, race run is a different thing. And combination here like Road Atlanta sort of talk us through it. I mean, also really hot conditions as well means that, these cars don't do tyre life necessarily per se, but how much does the added pressure of things like really hot temperatures sort of add into that tyre conservation and how you approach the track in terms of setup and mentality?
Yeah, typically pre-qual is quite cool relative to our races. We've got that dynamic weather setting and iRacing ticked So, it's kind of hard to predict what the setup's going to be like. And yeah, the air temperature was definitely a lot hotter than pre-qual, and there was barely any clouds in this session either as well. So yeah, the race was a lot hotter than we all anticipated, I believe, and I think that really caught me out in terms of having too aggressive a setup for the hot weather in race 1, for sure.
Well, as you said, able to make some adjustments that worked out really nicely there for you in race 2. Just needed a couple more laps. We'll be heading to Belle Isle in 3 weeks' time for the 8th round here in V8SCOPS. Obviously a very different type of course, heading to our first street circuit of the year. Any thoughts about what that'll be like for you, I guess, or anything you sort of take into that as a sort of early plan? Another 2-race format, so sprints will hopefully mean you don't have to worry about tyre life per se, but still going to have things like a compulsory stop to manage. But just thinking about the circuit, I guess, real quick, anything that comes to mind about how you get ready for a place like Belle Isle?
Belle Isle, I think, is really just get the car feeling comfortable and, get it turning on the nose, get a bit of drive off the corner, and it's all down to the driver to, deal with the bumps and get the mirrors in the walls. I really love Belle Isle. It's probably the one race I look forward to the most in a season. I've got a real rhythm there, and I really enjoy lapping there, and it's so satisfying. Just every lap you're able to put the mirrors in the wall without damaging the car. So yeah, I really look forward. It's just a really good rhythm track. You just get into a rhythm, and the lap time just goes down as you do more and more laps.
Well, look forward to seeing then what you guys can put on for us in that case. Before we let you go, Andrew, who else do you want to shout out for your results tonight?
Yeah, big shout out to Manon Racing Products, Sideways Photography, V&M Simulation, and SS Images. Thank you guys very much for your support. And big shout out to the team as well, like really strong results for us. Basically, all of us in the top 20 tonight, and Mike had a really good return to form with a 6th and a 7th and a P5 qualifying. So really proud of how much the team stepped up this event, and I'm looking forward to Belle Isle.
Well, there we go. Andrew Gilliam going to be equal 3rd in the round and a podium in race 2 to boot. That's going to do us for interviews here tonight, Reese. As indeed we look forward to the concrete jungle that is the raceway at Belle Isle. No longer in use in the real world, but it shall live on here with us on the iRacing platform. The weekend ending Sunday the 16th of July is when we'll be back in action. Of course, the weekend will start on the Friday night with support categories featuring the Grand Tour and the V8s to kick things off there.
Yeah, it will be an entertaining weekend, and we hope that you can all join us for that. Thanks very much, everybody, for watching. A huge thanks to the crew at Oceanic Sim Racing for putting this series on. And, of course, a big thanks to Jay Kennedy behind the scenes, bringing you all of these live pictures on YouTube, Facebook, and Kick. I'm Reese Gardner. It's Dan Yeaman alongside me. Make sure to subscribe to SimSpeed TV on YouTube and like us on the socials. And we will see you next time for the next round of V8 SCOPS for 2023.